This episode is brought to you by Element Electrolytes. Now, Andrew, have you tried Element's new flavor?
I actually have not tried it yet. I'm excited. I want to try it because I hear nothing but good things. However, what has been your experience?
Dude, number one, I gave you 2 packs of it, so I'm kind of disappointed in you for not having tried it. So get that in your mouth today. But dude, oh my God. It's okay. So my former flavor, best flavor was orange. Before that, it was raspberry. Mm-hmm. Watermelon by far is my favorite flavor.
Really?
Like in my next purchase of Element, I'm getting nothing but watermelon boxes.
Heck yeah.
Make jokes, guys. But either way, it is so good. It tastes like Sour Patch Kids.
Oh.
But like not too sour where like you drink it and you're like, you do that thing. It's so good. Element, they killed it with this one.
Awesome. I'm going to have to check it out. Look, I have 2 right here. No joke. He did give me 2. Mm-hmm. If you guys want to take advantage of this, you guys can head over to drinklmnt.com/power project. Pick up a value bundle. That's buying 3 boxes and then you get a 4th one free. If you can be like, or you can be like Nsima, grab all 4 watermelon flavors, or you can get a variety of all the other ones. I've been having chocolate every single night. It's like my little before bedtime snack, and it keeps me hydrated throughout the entire night. Again, that's at drinklmnt.com/power project. Head over there right now.
What up, Power Project crew? This is Josh Settlage, aka Settlegate, here to introduce you to our next guests, Jeff and Michael Wittmer. Jeff Wittmer is an Olympic weightlifter and silver and double bronze medalist at the 2008 Pan American Games in Peru. Jeff began Olympic weightlifting at the age of 10 in his home basement gym. Jeff's father, Dr. Michael Wittmer, a former national level competitor himself, had Jeff begin lifting weights to improve his ability in other sports. After a few months of training, Jeff decided to enter his first meet, and from there, he continued his success by winning the first 50 competitions that he entered in. After winning multiple junior national titles, he accepted an invitation to train at the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs, Colorado. He continued to compete throughout his mid-20s with success in national and international competitions. Jeff earned his bachelor degree in marketing and is currently working for Worldwide Technology on their Boeing program. His father, Dr. Wittmer, has been in practice since 1980 after receiving his doctorate degree from Logan University in St. Louis, Missouri. Dr. Wittmer has also been a faculty member at Logan University since 1984 and has also served as chief of staff from 2010 to 2015, educating thousands of physicians around the country along the way. He is also a certified USA weightlifting coach and has served as a valued member of the USA Weightlifting Board of Directors. Since starting his practice, Dr. Wittmer has helped thousands of patients and is committed to the best possible care for them. Dr. Wittmer has a lead and assisted with continuing education seminars for doctors of chiropractors, athletic trainers, along with personal trainers. His son Jeff has been recognized for supreme form and precision in the Olympic lifts and has also been featured on the cover of the textbook Explosive Lifting for Sports by Harvey Newton. But that is a different story for a different time. Please enjoy our guest today, Dr. Michael Wittmer and his son Jeff Wittmer.
What do you think about Andrew being scared of butter?
Butter's terrifying,
Andrew,
right?
Andrew has issues with butter about how much fat's in there. And
it's a love-hate thing, okay? Because I look at the calories and I figure I can do so much more with that. But also, true story, not much changed in my diet yesterday. The only thing different was I added butter to my steak, and I had a terrible blowout at night.
I thought you were going to say a tent. Thought you were going to say you're pitching a tent.
No.
Blowout, okay.
But I do feel really good today. I am full of energy, and I am ready for today's podcast.
What kind of blowout was it? Was it one where you need to run some forensic science on your toilet to figure out how it got sprayed so immensely?
So it did defy gravity. It went upwards somehow. On top of that, if I didn't have a bidet, I would have been in a lot of pain because it was spicy.
Were there oil bubbles?
I don't know.
Y'all ever had that shit? You got oil bubbles in your shit?
It's like the consistency of the buffalo wing sauce.
Yes, it's the worst.
It's got the little orange, little orange dot in it or something.
My God.
You're like, is that my kidneys, my liver? What's failing me? Doesn't look very good.
I'm so sorry, Jeff.
Oh, you're good. You're good. I had In-N-Out last night.
Yeah.
I had a few triples, so
Yeah, this morning, like, in my own experience.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, quite the load.
yeah, so it's been on my, you guys read my mind of what I've been thinking about what happened at the Holiday Inn Express
Andrew
this
had
morning.
to say load.
Dude,
Now see what happened. Remember when we had to edit out of yesterday's show?
we literally had to edit something out.
But this show, I feel like this is more fitting for the topic of discussion. By the way, have you had In-N-Out quite a bit or no?
What's that?
Have you had In-N-Out quite a bit?
Oh,
or no?
no. So I'm from Missouri.
Gotcha.
So only when if I'm in Utah, and I think, are they in Texas? I think I've only had it in Utah and Arizona, and that's it. So, 5 times in my entire life.
There's something that you'll notice when you eat more and more In-N-Out. All In-N-Out blowouts smell the same. I don't know if you realize that. No matter what your shit.
I can agree with that. It's like when you pee like after eating asparagus.
Yes. It's like it has a specific scent. I don't know why that is.
It's happiness leaving the body.
Yeah, I guess it is. But it's not phenomenal.
It's the onset of depression. Because you need more. The only thing to cure it is more In-N-Out burger.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I did have to Google how to look up to order. I know there's a specific way.
Yeah,
I did the 3x2s with 2 pieces of cheese, and you get the fries light well. So
Light well,
I guess is a thing.
It's a little extra crispier.
A little extra crispier, and then someone ahead of me got cheese melted, and I go,
Did you ask for the
cheesy fries?
Yeah. Did you ask for the happy ending as well?
I thought about it, but I didn't.
Okay. Yeah, that's the secret menu with the secret sauce.
Cool.
Okay.
So it looks like Dr. Wittmer is ready to go as well.
Where is he?
So this is new for the podcast.
Is he in Missouri?
I think so. Yeah.
There he is.
Oh, snap.
Here I am.
There we go. Yeah, thanks for joining in. Sorry to hear that you got hurt. You fell or something, right? Something happened. Something weird happened.
Helping my grandma move over.
I'm recovering. I'm all right.
There we go.
I'm squatting before the end of the week. Jeff, you look like you're missing a few parts. What's going on? Maybe you need to sit a little further away from those guys.
I know.
Jeff, did you get into lifting because of your pops?
Yeah.
Is that how this all started? How you guys got into this mess?
Yeah. So what is it? When I started when I was 10 years old, but I remember my first sports were baseball and soccer, but I remember him we would do push-ups and sit-ups in the living room. I think when I was like 7, and I would go to the gym with him and his buddies when we go to Pro Body Fitness, and I would be in the corner squatting with a broomstick while his buddies were lifting. And back then there was one platform for the power lifters and the Olympic lifters that lifted on. Then I was a little kid in the corner squatting with the broomstick, and he was showing me proper form. So I like to say I started a little earlier than I did, but we started with kind of weights at 10 down in the basement.
Doctor, the type of gym that you were at in the beginning, did it appear much different from today's gyms? Was it kind of like everyone had this, like it seemed like when I was growing up and I was in the gym, it seemed like everyone had the goal to be big, everyone had the goal to be strong. There really wasn't this fitness component to the gym industry just yet. It was just like people wanted to lift heavy. And they were either bodybuilding, powerlifting, Olympic lifting, doing those things. But it did seem like everyone just wanted to be like big and strong. Is that the way you remember?
About when I started lifting?
Yeah, just maybe around the time your son started going to the gym with you type thing.
Really, the place I was working out at, I wasn't competing then. I was older and just lifting, like that's what we do. And every once in a while, I'd bring him in there with me. We'd have the training plates. And, the funny part is, Jeff would miss a lift. And he'd try it again, he'd miss it. He'd try it again, he'd miss it. I'm like, okay, that's it. That's enough. And he'd start crying. And we'd go back into the locker room, and he's begging me to let him try it again. And I'm like, well, he's not going to hurt himself. It's a snatch, right? It's up and down real fast. So we'd go back out there, he'd miss it, and he'd start crying, just one more time, one more. And no, that's good. So we're doing this, and all these other guys at the gym are thinking that I'm this horrible father making my kid do this over and over and over. And here it was, I'm trying to talk him out of it. But I guess you could see behind me our family motto. And yeah, it was really a good time. We really started in our basement. I worked out there too. And I just showed Jeff how to pick up a weight, how to squat, how to put a weight overhead. We did some upright rows, maybe curls, just very basic movements. I had zero intention of him getting into weightlifting. He's just an athlete, and athletes lift, and the Wittmer family lifts. So that's what we did. And he just took to it, the discipline that he had as a little kid. He always wanted to work out. I'd come home from work and eat dinner, and he's like, let's go, Dad. And my wife would say, let Dad rest for a while. He just got home. I go, oh no, we're going. Anytime he wants to work out, we're working out. And I hope this doesn't embarrass him, but at one point he's doing 60-pound squats for 10 reps. Okay. And he's smoking them, just up and down, up and down, up and down. And he lost his balance and he pitched into the wall. He's standing up against the basement wall. He didn't hit the wall, but I just, lifted the bar off his back. And Jeff, you've got to maintain your tempo. You go down under control. You can come up as fast as you want, but you've got to balance and keep control going down. So, all right. So I put the bar back on the rack and I started unloading it. And he says, what are you doing? And I said, let's go to presses. That's your last set of squats anyway. Let's just go to presses. No, I want to do it. I said, no, that's okay. I want to do it. I said, yeah, all right. It's not 600 pounds, right? I could spot him with 3 fingers. So, okay. So I'm standing behind him to spot, and he's got his hands on the bar, and he's standing there going, I can do it. I can do it. I'm the man. He's 11. And I'm just going, oh my God, what have I done? But he has always had that drive, whatever it is. He had it, just a very mentally tough lifter. One time he was doing a jerk. I don't know if you remember this, Jeff. It was 85 pounds, and I'm videoing him with back then one of those large video cameras. And he got under the jerk. He didn't have it. He got it up about 3/4. It wasn't going, but he didn't bail. He fought it. Next thing you know, it crashes on his chest, and bam, he's flat down on the floor. I did everything you're not supposed to do. I dropped the camera, rushed over, picked the weight up off him, grabbed him, picked him up. Are you okay? You okay? And he's crying a little bit. And yeah, I'm okay. I said, Jeff, when those lifts aren't there, you got to know how to miss. Let it fall. And he said, we need to erase that tape so Mom doesn't see it. You remember that, Jeff?
Oh, vaguely.
See, I would think you didn't miss that many lifts, so you should have remembered that.
Yeah.
How'd you guys? That's kind of how it got started. Jeff asked at one point if he could get into those competitions like I used to do, and I could see that he had the talent. He's extremely quick with exceptional flexibility. Well, you're born with that. Now it's just about getting strong. And he was doing a set of power cleans for 5 reps. And on the 5th one, he did a complete full squat clean. Never taught him how to do it. Never knew anything about it. He just total. It was actually better than any clean I ever did in my life. Chest up, elbows up, perfect bottom position, comes right out of it. I said, do you know what you just did? He said, I was tired. I couldn't get the weight all the way up, so I just went under it. And you know how some guys just can't do that. And they don't like dropping under weights or getting under a snatch. And this kid just does it naturally without even thinking. That's what I started thinking. So you want to think you could do that again? Yeah. So we did it again. Well, now, all right. Now I started teaching him how to jerk. We went on to the snatch. And everybody thinks their kid's the greatest in the world. So I had some buddies of mine that I used to train with, were still active, and there were local meets. And I said, I want you guys to take a look at him. They go, well, weightlifting. Oh, yeah, I know. But, I want some objective eyes on him. And that's when he went to his first competition. I think you were still 11, weren't you?
Yeah, I was 11. I think I weighed 76 pounds at my first meet. My only deterrent from competing, I think initially was the singlets they used to wear, because I saw the pictures of him. They were the swimsuit ones, but they were, I mean, very revealing. And I'm like, thank God they came out with the longer ones. And in my initial meets, you could wear I think I wore a t-shirt and shorts, so then they had the longer singlets. And now they even have the full body ones. But I mean, I remember going to, and when I was young, watching him at meets, and I'm just like, I don't want to wear one of these swimsuit things. And
like, why do I got to wear a leotard?
That's so. Thankfully, those went away and never made a comeback. Really. So,
how'd you guys?
Jeff told me that if I wanted to get in a masters competition and if I wore my old singlets, he said, "I'm going to quit weightlifting." Thanks.
How'd you guys get into, what you're into now? How'd you get into, you've been a doctor, I'm sure, for many, many years. How'd you get into HRT?
Well, obviously, I lifted in the 70s and the 80s, so we all know what that means. The gym I started at in Peoria, Illinois, was a good powerlifting, bodybuilding. Anybody that was anywhere went there. In fact, you certainly have heard of Mike Bridges.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That's where Mike Bridges trained. And, we were all using anabolics. It was just part of it. So I always had an interest in it from that perspective. And then I got old, and I've been doing this as a patient now for about 8.5 years. My wife and I started it together, and we were in our 50s. I'm 67. And so was I 59 and she was 56. So we, would kind of look at each other as we aged, and it's not like we're in our 20s. And we kind of laugh, but the menopause that she was going through was really hard. And finally we just got to points that we're not doing this anymore, and wound up taking this journey. And now this is what we do as a business and a practice. Jeff is heavily involved in it. To me, my thinking is actually my motto: 0 frail old men. One of the things that just drives me crazy is when you see these skinny fat guys, they're fat, but they have skinny arms and skinny legs. And I'm like, good God, you get off the couch, grab a barbell, put it overhead, put it on your back, do some squats. Yeah, and probably get out some testosterone. Be a for God's sake. It's hard as you guys aren't there. But as you get older, you start looking around going, how am I doing? I think I could kick his ass if I had to. And that's kind of what you do when you get older, because what do you compare yourself to? Not when you were 20. So I think I'm doing okay for my age. But my weight class was 242, and I usually weighed around 240 with a 33, 34 inch waist. And now I'm weighing 238 with a 42 inch waist. Not now, but before I started. Yeah. And one day, I was kind of like, I'm all right. I haven't gained weight. I'm still in my weight class, for God's sake. But yeah, everything that was up here moved down. Everything that was down moved up. It's all centrally located. But I was sitting on the toilet one day leaning forward, and I'm, whoa, what is this here? And I got some fat. I didn't really. And again, I think I just kind of didn't focus on the truth because you don't want to. And that's when this has got to stop. And about 2 weeks after I started, and of course I knew what to expect. I'd done this stuff at a different level, of course, but I felt better in 2 weeks. Just walking around, I felt better. And I was thinking, good God, I didn't realize I wasn't feeling good. I thought I'm okay. And you always get that qualifier, okay for your age. But this was incredible. And of course, it just continued to improve from there. My lifting improved because my joints didn't hurt as much. I had more endurance, so I could get more reps. Usually what would hold me back is I'm doing presses. I think my shoulder's going to explode. I better not do a rep. Well, now, my shoulder's not hurting. So I was able to train at a little higher intensity. I'm not doing the lifts, of course, but I started gaining muscle. 6 months, I lost 5 inches off my waist, seemingly overnight. I used to joke around and tell guys, I'm spending more money on new clothes and alterations than testosterone. But yeah, now I wish, and my wife and I were the same. We look at each other, wish we'd have done this 10 years sooner. So I bet if I'd have done it at 49, I'd go, God, I wish I had done this at 39. And to me, it's just maximizing your life. It's a lifestyle choice. I tell almost every patient, you are not sick. And they're not, but they're 45 and they liked it better when they were 25. Well, we can do something about that. And that's what we do.
And so
extremely rewarding.
So when you got on testosterone, was it just testosterone and you felt all these benefits just from that?
No, I was also taking an anastrozole. And back then, most of the TRT doctors that I knew about and talked about, heard from, that was the concept that you want to manage estrogen and you want to keep it in that sweet spot. And I did that for 3 years. Then I started going to Neil Rousier's program. I don't know if you guys have heard of him, pretty well-known TRT hormone replacement doctor. And I went through all of his post-grad courses. I'm certified through him, and he's very much anti-aromatase inhibitors, let estrogen go. So I thought, well, I'm going to stop this and see what happens. And lo and behold, my cholesterol levels improved 20%. My joints felt a lot better. I have pretty high cholesterol or estrogen, 0 side effects. So in the office, we don't use the aromatase inhibitors very much at all. We've had guys that were able to go off of cholesterol medication and high blood pressure medication and even diabetes medication. Once they get their hormones optimized, get their testosterone up, they lose the visceral fat, and with it, their cholesterol markers improve. What's the worst thing in the world for somebody health-wise? Visceral fat. It's that visceral fat. Insulin sensitivity goes down, so you can lose that fat. Now, obviously, I encourage everybody to lift. I think everybody should work out, do strength training. Most guys do, or at least a lot of them, but we have some that they don't. They just sit on a needle once a week and they get great results.
It kind of makes
I'll talk forever if you let me go, so just interrupt.
Yeah, this makes me curious.
Yeah, please. I'm serious.
You mentioned that, you started at 59 and you knew you'd start at 49. And if you knew earlier, you'd start at 39, right? So it gets me curious, when does a man, when is the right time for somebody to start doing something like that? Let's say, are there certain numbers he should be looking for? Oh, okay, I am too low. Or if his numbers are good, is there even a reason to? You know what I mean? So what should he be looking for?
Most of the guys we see that come in, they're interested in testosterone because they're losing energy or lacking energy. They're tired all the time. They want to be more muscular. They want to look better. They're a lot more workout guys, and they want to look like they work out. And a lot of them poor libido. So pretty much for us, it's increase their sex drive or sexual function and gain some muscle. Look like they work out. So that's really it. We don't focus on numbers. I know I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth. So we look at these lab values. We look at reference ranges. The total testosterone range is 250 to 1100 through Quest, the lab we use. The free testosterone is 35 to 155. It's a big range. Mm-hmm. Tell everybody we're looking at these numbers. We're using this as a marker to give us some direction as to what your options might be and as a reference point moving forward. Then on the other side, I go, I don't give a shit about these numbers. How do you feel? If your testosterone level is 700 and you don't have a sex drive, we're going to do something about that. We're going to increase testosterone to get you feeling good. Next question is, well, where do you draw the line from? Now we're going from a testosterone restoration to the next step, or we're running cycles. I haven't had anybody, I think, really push that yet. We do have guys, I just got off the phone with one, his total testosterone was 1,500 and his free test is 260. So he's high and he's with us for a few years. And that's pretty much where he's been. I looked at his previous 3 labs and very consistent. He feels great. Everything regarding all his kidneys, liver function, lipids, his blood counts, everything looks great. So we're good. He's happy. He feels great. He's actually my age, exactly my age, almost a month apart on birthdays. Yeah, he's like, you got my life back. So I don't know if that answers your question satisfactorily. We don't draw a line and go, well, when you go before 400, we take you, or 250. A very typical patient will be a guy in his 40s who's tired, got the bellies, gained weight, his sex drive's down. His wife thinks he's having an affair because she's not seeing anything. Or maybe their marriage is just not what it used to be. They've been married a few years and she's looking at him going, you bastard, you gained 35 pounds. I've gained 5. You don't find me attractive? What's wrong here? Well, I don't know about you guys. I'd be depressed. If I was fat and tired all the time and not interested in having sex with my wife, I would be very depressed. So they go to their GP. And even if they check their testosterone, well, 250 to 1100 is a big range. So they come back at, pick a number, 300, 400, 500. You're fine. You're normal. You don't need testosterone. Let me give you an antidepressant. So they give an antidepressant and nothing changes, except they're happy because they got a brain chemical screwing with their head. Their wife is still unhappy. He's not interested in sex with his wife. He's tired all the time. He's still fat. He's not functioning at work. And that is a very classic presentation to see. The wife will come in with him because they want to make sure I get the full story. As soon as I see a woman in the room with the guy, I know exactly what's going on. And what often happens, I always tell the wife, I said, now be careful what you wish for here. What often happens is 5 or 6 months later, the wife's in the office. She's like, yeah, I can't keep up with him. I'm going to have to do this too. So really good way to build a practice, right, Jeff?
That's right.
Jeff, how are you involved in this process?
Yeah, so I'm one of the owners, and then I also handle some of the marketing and day-to-day operations. Then obviously a patient myself as well. So yeah, and I had to the experience that he just mentioned as far as, someone going to their GP for, there's a lot of things that led me to get interested in this. And, the first shift for me was, I was talking to Chris earlier, but with watching Bigger, Stronger, Faster, where I, coming from a sport that was drug tested sport, I was competing for 15 years. It was, everything was anything on the banned substance, the banned substance list, it was harmful for your health. You can't take it. And even if you go to the, U.S. Anti-Doping Agency website right now, it says testosterone leads to depression and suicide, which is, so I had spent 15 years getting all this false narrative kind of pushed to me and, propaganda, if you will. And so my mindset completely shifted. And this was leading up to when I competed in the 2008 Olympic trials, when the movie came out. And, when I saw that, I go, and all the facts he laid out and how he presented it. And I said, hold on, like some of this stuff, this doesn't sound as bad. I think I've been getting a load of bullshit. And I'm almost 37 now, became a patient myself at 32. And, what led me to become a patient was I had, transitioning out of a weightlifting career, failed attempts at the Olympics. You're going through that, trying to get out there in the real world. And I'm sure, plenty of people that can relate to that. And, was just a little lost, and I was sleeping all the time. I was depressed, and I go to my GP, and, they don't run a blood panel on me and say, well, they'll put you on some SSRIs and we'll try those out. And, I did those. I didn't like the way I felt on them. I didn't feel like myself. And kind of right when we opened the clinic, I was like, hey, I might not need, my testosterone is probably not low, but let's go get it checked. Obviously we have access. I go get it checked, and I'm 335 total nanograms per deciliter, which is really low on the scale, especially for a 32-year-old. My, girlfriend, at the time was not my wife, she thought I was falling asleep at night, and she thought I had a side piece. So it was causing issues with our relationship. And then when I, so when I started the testosterone, I got off the antidepressants because what was happening was I was sleeping all the time and, down, not so much from the, wasn't a lack of serotonin in the brain. It was the lack of, the hormone imbalances that I was experiencing. So for me, all of a sudden within a few weeks, I had energy. I had a sex drive back because, if you think, how you'd feel without a sex drive, without being able to work out, having trouble getting up in the mornings, just not being able to do those things is going to make me depressed. But all of a sudden I fix that. And then in turn, it solves everything else with the depression. So that was when, obviously I was, firmly bought in with the research I had done before. And obviously from, some of the stuff Chris had laid out as well. And so I was all in, and I had tried to get him to start this sooner, and I was getting a little jealous when I started seeing my almost 60-year-old dad getting some chest veins, and I go, what the fuck? I go hold on, maybe I need it's so I was getting a little jealous. So I was like, maybe I'll start, and then after a few weeks I get the extra energy, and that was so obviously I'm a good case study as well. So when I talk to patients, can relate to a lot of things in that sense.
Very cool.
Is HRT, is it something that, after you do it for a while, can you maintain some levels, or is it something that when you are on HRT, you are on HRT for as long as you want to be on HRT?
You could always stop. Your levels are going to drop down to around where they were when you started. And most of the guys we get that stop, they wind up coming back.
Yeah.
A lot of them have unrealistic expectations. They think they're going to look like Sylvester Stallone or something. And when they don't, they're like, I'm not getting out of this what I want. And so they'll stop. And then, 6-8 months later, they call us up. Yeah, I'm really feeling bad since I stopped. So they're back. They say it's for life, and it doesn't have to be. It just has to be as long as you want to feel good.
And there's a proper protocol to if someone does elect to stop, which is rare because normally people feel pretty good, but there's a proper protocol to follow to stop, where you don't abruptly stop is what we recommend people not to do. Where, you can, and I'll let him to speak to the protocol as far as adding HCG in to help, kickstart your natural testing. So there's a right way and a wrong way to stop. So it's never advised for someone to abruptly stop.
Yeah, it's my understanding too that testosterone is sometimes even, you mentioned depression. I've heard people suggesting testosterone for depression. It can really help a lot because for me, I've found it to be extremely motivating to be on testosterone. What have you guys seen as far as that goes?
Mark, that's a great comment. I'm at a medical conference in Salt Lake City, and there's all kinds of disciplines and specialists taking these programs, 100 doctors in the room. There's a luncheon. I'm sitting next to a woman who's a psychiatrist. And you're like, well, what do you do? What's your backgrounds? And she's, I'm a psychiatrist. And she was very old. Looked like she should have been on TRT or hormone replacement a long time ago. But regardless, she tells, I go, a psychiatrist? You're at a hormone conference. Wow. So I'm looking at her and I said, let me guess. And I pretty much just ran the same scenario by her that I ran by you guys with that 45-year-old guy who's fat, tired, out of shape, et cetera, depressed, winds up in a psychiatrist's office. And now she's treating him. And 2-3 years, I don't know, just at some point down the road, they're back in on a follow-up and they look different. They're in shape. They're happy. Oh, yeah, I've been going to this TRT clinic. And that's usually what it is. It's a specialty clinic because this isn't taught in general medical school, and GPs and even endocrinologists, they don't look at it the same way. But now they've gone to a testosterone replacement clinic and they're on test and they're doing great and they don't need the drugs. So I'm looking at her, telling her this story, and I said, and you're thinking, I'm going to eliminate the middleman. So why should I give them these medications? I'm just going to check their hormones and give them hormones. And this is someone who actually got it. So yeah, I don't know. you can't put everybody in the same box, but my God, I would definitely look at my hormone levels before I went on some medications. The way I look at this is I know testosterone is a pharmaceutical product. It's even a controlled substance in this country. And we could discuss that, but that's another subject. But that's what it is. That's law. But it's not a drug. It's a hormone that was invented by God that we make naturally. It's not a drug. So if you could balance your natural hormones, something your body naturally had, instead of taking chemicals that are created by men and women who work for the pharmaceutical industry, and there's nothing wrong with making money. I'm all for that. And that's what they do. Well, why do you think there's so much pushback with testosterone in our country? There's no money in it. Can't patent testosterone. Where you can patent these drugs, they got a patent for 17 years after they get it through research and development and get it approved by the FDA, which isn't cheap. And it makes a lot of money for the government too, because they have fees that these guys have to pay to get their stuff approved. To me, it's common sense, I think.
So earlier you had mentioned that, because one of my questions I had for you guys today was going to be like, okay, so then what is a proper level that somebody should be striving for? But like you said, it could be different for everybody. So is it the same for TRT? Would 100 milligrams a week for one person work really well, and then that not work really well for somebody else who has similar symptoms? Or is it pretty safe to say that 200 milligrams a week is going to be fantastic? 600 is going to be really, really bad because it's too much, or you get what I'm trying to say?
You're talking more dosing levels.
Correct. Yes. Sorry.
Okay. That's one of my favorite areas of discussion. This makes what we do challenging, fascinating, and frustrating. We're all different. And I've got guys that take less than I do every week that have better levels than I do, significantly better. I don't know, go figure. That's just the way our body metabolizes it. We both feel good, so I'm good with that. But I've got a few guys taking 80 milligrams a week, a few guys taking 220. I've had a few guys go up to 250 for a while. I don't know off the top of my head if we have anybody still doing that much.
There's a few.
Back to maybe your question, most of the guys take between 140 and 180. And depending on their level of patience, we may start lower and gradually titrate upward to effect. Some guys, I'm not patient. So I kind of tend to be a little over aggressive. When I do that follow-up with them in 6 weeks, I want to hear they're feeling great. So I kind of will push it. But sometimes I don't know exactly why, but maybe going from 300 level testosterone to 900 is just a little too much too fast. That let their body gradually adapt to it and get used to the increased levels. Wasn't the case with me, but it is with some people, I think. I don't know. But I'll ask the patient, what do you think? How patient are you? Are you a patient person? Oh, yeah. I'll say, okay, here's what we'll do. We'll just gradually work upward if you'll be patient. It may take us a while to determine what dose works best for you, but we can do that. Some are going, no, I want to go there now as soon as possible. I want an injection today. I want to go to the gym, and I got a date after that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it doesn't get in you that quickly, but it's a different approach. And the way I look at it is I'm working for the patient. That person is my boss. And we're going to do what's healthy for them. We're not going to do anything that's not healthy or illegal. But I work with them. So I'm very flexible. We have guys that inject twice a week, 3 times a week. I've had a few guys try daily injections. They all went back to twice a week. Most of the guys do once a week. Did that answer your question okay?
Yeah, it actually did.
Okay.
But it does bring up another question that I just thought of. You had said, we'll just take the patient person. You gradually increase it until they're satisfied, or like, how does that work? Because I'm just thinking, if it's me, it's like, dude, I feel good. Oh, I feel better. This feels even better. Like, doc, let's keep going. Let's see where this, where we could, where this roller coaster will end up at. So how do you determine responsibly what that level ends up being?
One of the things I found from back in the day is there's certainly a point of diminishing returns. And then when you keep going past that, it even goes in the other direction. You don't feel as good. And so there's such a thing as too much of a good thing. And one of our favorite sayings was, when I was competing, was, strength is a greedy mistress. There's always room for more weight on the bar. Some people have that mindset. I've got documentation of their progress over the last several months and how great they're telling me they're doing. And we get to a point where their levels are very good, even a little over the range. That's where we're going to stay. And I pretty much tell the guys the same thing I just said to you. I said, testosterone is really a good thing, but there's such a thing as too much of a good thing. How are you feeling? I'm feeling great. Then we're good. I want to feel greater. Yeah. I really have not had patients push that. I tell them from day one, this is not anabolic steroid cycles. It's not performance enhancing drugs. We want to optimize your hormones to effect, to address the symptoms and let you get the most out of your life. We're not going to double their dose so they can bench press another 30 pounds. Don't do that. Not that I have a problem with that, but this isn't the place for it.
God damn it. The amounts that we're talking about here, for anybody that's listening that has used performance enhancing drugs, I mean, it's really, really small amounts. What are you guys allowed to prescribe? Is there, certain rules or laws that you have to follow? Because 200 milligrams is about three times less than what someone would take to get big and strong.
Really aren't rules. We don't use insurance. And kind of why. For starters, most of our patients would not qualify for TRT because they're normal. Their levels are normal. Well, again, let's go back to that 250 to 1100 range. A guy could be 300. That's normal. Another guy could be 1,000. That's normal too. I'm going to suggest that the guy with 1,000 is probably a lot happier than the guy with 300. So as far as rules, no. I guess if there was a problem with somebody that was overdosing, and I'm not really sure what that would be because I don't think there's any studies that I'm aware of. It's all the anecdotal stuff back with the PED guys that hasn't really been studied. I guess if you're subject to a lawsuit of some kind, but there's no rule that tells you can only do this much. I have one of our patients is a surgeon, and he told me that 95% of what I do, there's no evidence in the literature for it. But he's found through his years of practice, this is what works. And this is what I'm going to do, even though it's not a normal protocol. In fact, the guy that did Jeff's quad, didn't he do something different with that? He told you?
He did. He said, as far as the way he tied it back down. I ruptured my quad tendon about 1.5 years ago, but he took it in 3 spots, tied it back down, screwed it in. He said tighter than he would have ever done for anyone else because he knew I was going to squat on it. So it still kind of feels like I have a rubber band wrapped around it. But but I mean, just to kind of add to that too, as far as, you asking some of the questions as far as like what we're prescribing, and then outside of testosterone, I mean, we do have, there's other products too with my, with my knee recovery. I did, I used some peptides as well. I used, went on and off. We prescribed nandrolone as well. So the proper doses, nandrolone can be very safe and effective with, helping with joint pain, which you may be familiar with if you've taken before. It was key in my, within under 1 year, I was back to, I had full range of motion. I was not to my best squats ever, just because I'm a little old, but I think if I needed to, I could push it. So it definitely helps speed up the recovery process as well.
What's been some of your experience with, seeing higher doses prescribed or hearing other people doing higher doses? Are either one of you aware of there being like some sort of dangerous threshold when it comes to, I guess it's hard to say with testosterone, because most of the people that take quite a bit of testosterone will usually take other things, right? I guess I'm just basically trying to ask if you guys know or have seen or come across any research that shows, somebody getting into the 500-600 to 1,000 range of this having dangers, and what are the dangers if you guys have seen any of those things? Yeah,
I know we've seen over 5,000 total nanograms per deciliter, but I'll let my dad kind of speak as far as what some of the other markers may have looked while they're taking that high of a level. Some people that were, transitioning into doing therapeutic doses, but I know we've seen some crazy numbers over the years.
In the office?
Yeah. I'm saying as far as there are other panels outside of just the testosterone, if you saw anything in those that, hey, there was some additional health risk based on the blood work or other assessment.
Not directly related to testosterone. Back when we were lifting, we never checked anything other than liver enzymes. We're using synthetic anabolics, so those are hard for your liver to break down because they're synthetic chemicals. And that's all we looked at. The lipid testing that's available now wasn't available then, and nobody ever dawned on checking hormone levels. So why would you? We know we're going to be really high. We didn't care. The guys I saw that were taking a lot, and I thought I was taking a lot, but it's all relative. There were guys taking a lot more. And we were pretty honest about it within the weightlifting community. But powerlifting, I don't know. But some of these guys were back then what would seem like a crazy amount, taking like 2,000 milligrams of test a week. I do have some friends and guys that I know of back from the day in St. Louis that are not here anymore. They wound up, now these guys' lifestyle, they were drinking, they were smoking, they're using cocaine, they're doing lines of coke before their workouts, they're taking all kinds of anabolics. They wound up obesity, diabetes, wound up having strokes at much earlier than 92, in their late 40s, early 50s. So I think there's a lot of moving parts there. And people that didn't know any better are going to say, well, use steroids. And about 19 other things that he should have been doing. I was at a powerlifting meet once, and we all supported each other back then. It was a really cool community. It's hard to get into the bodybuilding, but powerlifting, still, you're doing it. Not looking good, you're doing good. But this guy was actually a patient of mine, and he was a pretty decent lifter, but he was like, about 5'7", 5'8", 260, kind of a goo. Whoa. And he had short arms and a thick chest, and he benched 500 pounds. Decent squat, not great, but not as good as his bench. Deadlift was a problem because he had a hard time with those short arms getting down to get them off the floor. So he's going out before his deadlifts, and what's he doing? He's skin popping epinephrine. This is a guy with high blood pressure. Really high. I mean, in the office, I said, John, you got to stop, man. You got to stop drinking. You got to stop smoking. You need to get off. Well, I got a meet coming up. Well, you need to get off. So I'm okay. I'm just really hit me. I remember this like it was yesterday. I'm thinking, my God, somebody's going to die right on the platform someday. You've got a guy who is not cardiovascularly fit anyway. Throw in the obesity and the smoking, and he's got hypertension, and he's skin popping at his delt, epinephrine. Oh, come on, man. It's just crazy. So I think some of the sideways things these guys were doing, that's a lifestyle. That's not what we do. And even back with a lot of the Olympic lifters, we were pretty healthy. We ate good. we weren't taking what I would have considered crazy. With weightlifting, I think it's a little different. And you guys would probably know how, Mark, you would. If your skill level is only here, it doesn't matter how strong you are. I smoked some guys that were a lot stronger than me. And there were guys that were skinny and nothing near what I could squat, but they'd outsnatch me because they were better athletes. So I think with us, you can take all you want and you can get as strong as you want, but there's going to be a ceiling there based on your athletic ability that really doesn't matter how much you're taking. I think every time somebody gets beat, they want to think their opponent is taking more. Well, no, maybe he's a better athlete than you.
This makes me curious. I mean, I'm assuming that you guys like do online consults and stuff, but for somebody that they don't live in that area and they're looking around and they're looking for an HRT doc, what are some things that they need to be looking for? What are some red flags that they need to take into account for when they do have their first consultation with said doctor? What questions do they need to ask to make sure that this person is going to give them the right things and not fuck them up?
Do you want to take that one? Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in and take that one too. So I probably research more clinics and talk to, obviously people that are switching clinics. I mean, definitely. I mean, I've seen clinics where they're not running any blood work panels on people. They're just signing them up and getting them started. Mm-hmm. Also, I think a red flag too is that some of the clinics, they will start people off on 6 different medications instead of focus on the bioidenticals first. They'll add in so you don't even know what's working. So
bioidenticals?
As far as hormones your body producing, so testosterone, DHEA, and looking at thyroid as well. So I would say making sure there's a complete medical panel. So not only just looking at the hormones, where some clinics will only test for, they'll do very simple, basic test where it's they'll do the cheapest ones so they can make the most money. So it's, testosterone, maybe free testosterone. Sometimes they'll throw in sex hormone binding globulin, but it's a very limited, cheap panel. They'll charge you a lot for it. That would be a red flag. So, limited blood panel or no blood panel, or trying to throw the house at you right from the beginning. So when you do start, just like, you don't know what's really working and what's not. Hey, I feel pretty good, but what's actually doing it? So we take more of a phased approach where it focuses on the bioidenticals first. And then, like I said, there are other products we can add in if you feel good, you want to feel great, or there's a specific goal or recovering from an injury. If we want to focus on that, we can handle that as well. But, that would be a red flag. And, as far as pricing goes too, because obviously there's a lot of scams out there. I mean, it is. That's why I think there's, I think the industry is becoming less taboo, but I hear of, what was happening was we have a lot of patients that were flying to us from California to Missouri to come see us because the prices were outrageous out here. I mean, it could be $10,000 plus a year. They're paying every follow-up consult a ton for blood work. And, and so people would say, hey, I'll book a plane ticket for $300, see you guys get established face-to-face. Now with the ability to do telemedicine, that barrier of the flight and the scheduling, we can do it, while someone's on their lunch break at work. So it makes it much more convenient. But yeah, I mean, I think too, also, if you see some of these places will say, hey, there's a monthly membership fee, then you pay your prescriptions on top of that. So, we want, our goal too is where we don't want to treat, just like some of these clinics, just the country clubbers. Mm-hmm. That's not us. We want it to be available to whether you be, a first responder. We make it affordable so anyone can get started. Yeah. So I think those would be the red flags, obviously, with the price and kind of what I mentioned as well, and the consult times too. So one thing that when my dad does a consult, I mean, he blocks out an hour and a half of time. Say sometimes he takes a full time, but as you can tell, he gets a little long-winded talking sometimes, so you can see why they could go an hour and a half. But it's an educational process where he gets to know them as a person, what's their lifestyle, go through their medical history. He's going to tell you go through every blood marker in detail, and he's going to tell you what you're getting prescribed and why. Where we'll see people will come to say, I don't know anything. So when you see those, they say, okay, you meet with the doctor from 9 to 9:10. Well, how are you going to know what the hell you're getting yourself into if they're only talk to you for 10 minutes? So that would be another red flag. So you rattled off a bunch, but I hope that's helpful for people. Those are the things to be on the lookout for sure. And one other thing to add too, and this is what I was talking with Chris about this earlier, and there's anytime you see a place that's advertising a cookie cutter protocol saying, hey, $199 a month, here's what you get, dosage, and okay, hey, cypionate, DHEA, anastrozole, here's your set dose, everyone gets that. Well, doesn't matter where your blood work levels are, or what your symptoms are. Why would they? So everyone's just getting that. Kind of compared to if you go to a supplement shop, they'll say, hey, pre-workout protein, pre-workout protein and whatever, and multivitamin, which is pretty standard, which, I would say for the majority of people working out, we probably all were on the similar page there. But it's treated like that, where I said there needs to be a more thorough assessment with the blood work and consultation. So.
How do you pronounce your name?
Nsima.
Nsima? Okay.
Yes.
I apologize. I want to make sure I got it correct.
It's all good.
Yeah. I really don't get people that ask me questions. They, I think, are mostly referrals. So they've already got a level of confidence coming in and a level of trust built in because a close personal friend of theirs or family member has already, this is what you need to do. And they're already bought in. But to try to answer your question a little better, I would tell patients to ask around, try to get a referral from somebody and trust. Jeff mentioned the cookie cutter approach that a lot of clinics use. And I don't know how a patient would necessarily know that's being done. Jeff knows some of these facilities in St. Louis. If I get a patient that comes in from another place, I already know what they're on. I know what their dose is. I know what they're taking. I had a 60-year-old guy that had a vasectomy come in, and he brought all his meds. He brought his testosterone, his HCG, and his anastrozole. And we had our labs on him. So I'm sitting there, and he was going to another facility. I said, okay, so why are you taking HCG? Are you still interested in having children? And he looks at me like I got two heads. I go, no, I had a vasectomy, you idiot. And I'm going, yeah, I know you had a vasectomy. I looked at your chart. But I was just wondering if you're thinking about a reversal or something at age 60. He goes, no. Well, so why are you taking an anastrozole? They said I needed to keep my testicles going. I said, okay, why? Now, to me, the only reason to use HCG is because you don't want the testicular atrophy, or you're actively trying to conceive. If estrogen is not a problem, why are we taking an estrogen? Well, they said it was just like Jeff said, it's part of the program. Well, when you buy a $100,000 Mercedes, there's things that are part of the price there too, but it's not $30,000 now, it's $100,000. I encourage everybody to get on the internet and read things. I do that a lot. I want to know what people are reading and be therefore better able to answer their questions. I try to answer questions before they even come up with them. I just like this. So, this is it's fun to explain all this. I like to explain, here's what we're doing. Here's why, here's what your options are. You tell me. We have a patient who's a pulmonary oncologist at a major hospital here. And they had a hard time scheduling her because she kept rescheduling. And the medical assistant said, I think she works at a hospital or something. So we're like, oh, okay. Well, as it turned out, like I said, she was an oncologist, and she comes in and, I usually have a good idea where patients are coming from. And I asked her, so how'd you hear of us? And she kind of shrugged her shoulders and the internet? I go, the internet? I guess she stumbled across our website or something. And right away I'm going, man, I wouldn't pick a doctor off the internet. I know people do, but okay. So when I got to go over all of her labs with her, I said, I'm going to skip over a lot of this stuff because you probably know it. And she's like, no. assume I know nothing because we're not taught this. And okay. But yeah, I think from my perspective, telling a patient what to look out for, how would you know? If you just walk into a place cold turkey, you don't know what's normal or not. I tell people to go ahead and do your research on the internet if you want. Keep in mind that a lot of people put their anecdotal stories up there, and it's that one person with their story, and that may or may not, probably not, relate to you at all. So you have to take that with a grain of salt. I think it's interesting to read the stories and hear about them, but it probably shouldn't drive you in any particular direction. I think what I do, the feedback I get from patients that have gone elsewhere, when I start explaining this, they go, I didn't know that. Nobody ever told me this. So I like to educate them, and I don't discourage them from getting other opinions either. If this doesn't make sense to you, then you need to move on.
Yeah.
Don't.
Real quick, you had mentioned a vasectomy, so I'm curious. Does getting a vasectomy alter or impact your testosterone at all?
No.
Okay, cool. That's plain simple. Cool. Great. So what if somebody's listening and they're like, oh, I didn't go to a quote clinic. I got my testosterone prescription and supplements or whatever you want to call it from my actual doctor. So I should be okay, right?
Are they in our office?
No, I'm just saying, like, in general, there's somebody listening, they think that they might be safe because they went to, like, out here we have Sutter, we have Kaiser. They went to their regular doctor and they're getting a prescription from them.
I can speak to a little bit of the Kaiser. So I can know Kaiser's a familiar one for you guys out here. Now, typically with Kaiser, they're looking for under 100 total nanograms per deciliter, and they'll get prescribed, if you're that low where you can get some coverage. I've seen some crazy protocols from people that have come over from Kaiser where the GP is telling them to take 2 shots a month of 100 milligrams of testosterone cypionate. So with the half-life being 7 days, so they're actually almost doing more harm than good because of their levels are then crashing, then reaching back up. So I've seen some crazy protocols from some of the GPs, since obviously they're not trained in it, or what they'll do is they will only prescribe you with what's going to be covered through the insurance. And Dad, I'll let you add kind of onto that, but I think that's a good example that can kind of resonate here just from knowing a lot of the Californians that go through that experience.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would ask the patient, how are you doing? How are you feeling? Are you happy with whatever? The Endocrine Society's recommendation is 200 milligrams of testosterone every 2 to 4 weeks. And a lot of GPs are going to look at, if you come back at 400 or 500, then you're good. Even though you may not be feeling that much better or better at all, your levels are fine. You don't need any more. The half-life of the various esters ranges around a week. So by the end of that second week, your levels have dropped pretty low. And if that's something that really affects you, fine. And we do maximum is every week. Nobody goes longer than a week between injections. But there are a whole lot of people in this country that go to their general practitioner for testosterone, and they're happy. They're happy. Now, maybe they'd be happier if they were doing a different protocol, but they're happy. They're doing a shot every 2 weeks, which we go, that's crazy. And you're only doing 200 milligrams every 2 weeks. You shouldn't. But if it works for you, if you're happy with it, then fine, just keep doing it. A lot of the guys we see that have been going through their GP or even an endocrinologist, they're not happy with the results. And we look at their labs, we talk about ranges, talk about their symptoms. You go, guess what? We're going up. It's pretty simple, really. They just need more. But they go by the guidelines. And I'm friends with my general my GP, and standard protocol, 200 milligrams a week. And he doesn't even like to do that, but he'll give it to them, probably selected patients. But Yeah, 200 milligrams a week is what, or I'm sorry, every 2 weeks.
Yeah, I was just going to say
every other week. Yeah, I said that wrong.
Every other.
And
So that's what they're taught. That's what the Endocrine Society recommends, and that's what they read, and that's what they do.
cool. And then you said that you wouldn't recommend to do it every other week. Is there a certain sweet spot, or is there a certain recommendation that you guys have for how often to be injecting testosterone?
Individual. I tell guys, if you feel like you're running out of gas and you're hitting a wall before you get up to that next injection date, let me know. We have guys that do every 6 days, they do every 5 days, twice a week, whatever. That is based on how they feel. Now, some people are just much more sensitive to fluctuations. They metabolize this differently. One of the best examples I can give you, this guy's actually a GP, and he comes in, he's on testosterone, he's taking 400 milligrams every 2 weeks. Okay, so 400 milligrams. Whoa, how you doing? I feel great for like 3 or 4 days. And the second week, he's miserable. A couple of our patients were patients of his, and they were telling him what they were doing and how great they were feeling. So he's like, shit, I'm going to call this guy. So that's why he came in. So I told him, I said, okay, look, here's what we'll do. Take your 400 milligram injection, just like you always do. Go get your blood drawn in 7 days. And let's just see. So in 7 days, his total testosterone was 350. Roughly, give or take a little. 7 days after a 400 milligram injection, are you kidding me? That's impossible. That's the way he's metabolizing this. So I told him, it's okay, here's what we're going to do. You're still going to take 400 milligrams every 2 weeks, but you're going to split it up into 4 100 milligram injections. So next time we do labs, do it 3.5 days after your injection before you take your injection. So that's what he did. And you know what he came back at? 800.
Did he have a high sex hormone binding globulin?
It was low, but I haven't found correlation there. There's a lot of theories and arguments over, if you have low sex hormone binding globulin, you need more frequent injections. If you have high, you don't. His was actually low. But I've got guys with low sex hormone binding globulin that do once a week at 200 milligrams, and they're great. But this guy, hyper metabolizer, whatever, and he's stuck with that protocol. Gosh, we're like over 3 years now, and he's just can't be happier. This is just what worked for him. Now, how can you take 400 milligrams and in 7 days be down to 300? Take 100 milligrams and you're at 800. I don't know what he would have been by day 7. He'd have to be down 300 or less. But okay, I don't necessarily understand what's going on, but I'm not questioning it. And we got a guy here that's feeling great. And he's not doing anything crazy with that dose.
Yeah, and I had tried splitting. I do 1 day a week, but some people were saying I feel a lot better with the 2. So I tried splitting it up. Felt zero difference other than just the extra pain in the ass of having to inject, which doesn't really bother me. But I was like, you know what? I'll try it for 3-4 months, see if I notice any difference. But I wasn't feeling much of a dip. I think what happens too is, let's say someone injects on a Sunday or Monday, and then they go, by Friday I'm draining. What happens between Sunday and Friday? It's the fucking work week. You're taking your kids all around. So a lot of times it's kind of a false perception in their head that, it's my T drop. T's dropping off too much, doc. It's like, well, no, like you finished your work week and you had all these other stressors involved, which is pretty standard, I think, for some people, depending on what their job is. I feel all the days run together for me, so it's all pretty steady. But
testosterone is really a tricky thing because, I think, when we use hormone replacement or you use steroids, we'll just call them, they can make you big, and you use a good amount of them, they'll give you some results. You'll get big, you'll get strong. However, looking at someone's testosterone levels is not an indication a lot of times. If somebody's not symptomatic, if somebody doesn't have symptoms, they don't have a problem, they don't have an issue, they're not tired, their normal life is good, you cannot predict, you can't look at somebody who's jacked and be like, that guy's testosterone's through the roof. So it's not apples to apples. And I found it interesting that estrogen is the same way. You talked about menopause, and I think that people think that that's because your estrogen goes through the roof. But my understanding is that it's your estrogen is going down is actually kind of more of what's happening. And a lot of times when it comes to testosterone, I think we just always kind of associate it with like muscle or, being more motivated to go and do certain things, even in terms of sex. But sometimes you can inject a fuck ton of testosterone and not get any result from it that would. So what do you like? How do you guys kind of simplify some of this confusion? Is it because that once you bump up testosterone, there's 75 other things going on in the body? But is that kind of what's happening? Like, what's your opinions of this?
Well, there's a lot of moving parts here, and lifestyle. I tell you, with this last year with COVID, a lot of our guys just weren't feeling as well, and we're having these conversations. Well, what's going on? They're working from home. They're eating crap. They're off their routine. The gym closed, which, Jeff will tell you how it works in the Wittmer family. We are never without a barbell in our possession. I was like that before I went to college. I had 2 Olympic sets and squat racks, and there was a time where I had it set up in my living room in my apartment. Obviously, I couldn't drop weights. They'd have gone into the basement. But if the weather was bad, if the car was broken down, and back in those days, the car broke down a lot, I could still train. These poor guys, they go to a gym, the gyms were closed. They're gaining weight, they're lethargic, they're not happy. So, there's a lot of moving parts here, and everybody's different. I think I hesitate. There's a lot of mental in your head stuff with this too. And here's you guys could probably relate to this. Back in the day, I wrote a lot of drug programs for guys. I just knew more about it. They all asked me for help. And so I got this guy, he was a state champion in a shot put, big guy, wants to power lift, 275-pound weight class. He's already strong. And, he wants to do steroids. So we got him on a program. And he comes up to me several weeks into this and he goes, Mike, I'm really having trouble with this. I said, what's the matter? He said, the roid rage. I said, roid rage? What are you talking about? He said, well, last week I took a shot. And I went out in the family room and my fiance had a movie on that I didn't like. And I blew up at her. And she said, you just took a shot, didn't you? Well, now you guys are all laughing. I was laughing a lot harder. I'm laughing at this guy. I said, geez, you're just a prick. This is not an insulin injection that gets in you now. It's not a peptide. This is a steroid hormone, slow acting, long lasting. This doesn't turn you into the Incredible Hulk in a minute. And if you want to go out there and be an asshole to your fiance, go ahead. Don't blame the steroids. You're just an asshole. And there are guys like that we trade with that, they were assholes off steroids too. But when they get on drugs, they just thought, I got an excuse to be a bigger asshole. So with a lot of patients, and I go through these side effects and things to look for, some guys, they get a little emotional. They get a little edgy. They respond differently to estrogen levels. I had guys with estrogen that's 3 times over the top into the range. They love it. They feel great. Other guys, it goes a little over. It's a problem. Well, we address it on an individual basis. But I tell them, take your testosterone. Enjoy your life. Don't think about it. Just enjoy your life. These guys will call me, my nipples are tender. Well, stop rubbing them all day. All day, are my nipples tender? Are my nipples tender? Well, damn it, now they are. Of course. If somebody runs you off the highway and you lose your shit, oh, my estrogen must be high. No, the guy almost killed you. You're supposed to be pissed. It's all right. But I think that's a real issue with some. They just think about it too much. We got guys, if their refill didn't come on time and they're a day late, they're freaking out. And our our staff's really great. They'll meet them somewhere with a syringe to accommodate them. And we just kind of, hey, it's here, but that's okay. If it's in your head, it's still real to you.
I'm really curious about this because it's like, we know that there are a lot of lifestyle factors that can influence a man's testosterone. He's not getting enough sleep. If he's not exercising, if he's not eating well, he's not getting outside in the sun. Like a lot of these things, and added in with being indoors, watching TV, being on your phone all day, like you're just going to be a weak dude,
Yeah.
Now, I was curious, is it a myth? Because we've heard this before of people saying that back in the past, like 50 years ago, 100 years ago, male testosterone was higher than the average levels now. Is that a myth or is that legitimate because of lifestyle factors?
No, I think there's something to that. If we think back even into, I don't know if I want to say prehistoric times or, the caveman, those guys look pretty jacked. But I think, well, if they didn't have really high testosterone levels, they were somebody's dinner, or they got beat out by their rival trying to get the woman. Mm-hmm. So it's a survival thing that if you didn't have high levels of testosterone, you're not going to survive. Nowadays, men aren't really men. My grandparents, they worked. My one grandfather was a farmer. They worked construction. They worked in factories. Now we hang out all day and look at a computer and talk about hormones with guys. But guess what? We all go to the gym and we hit it hard. The general public, not so much. So lifestyle changes, sedentary lifestyle. Yes. I did see a study going past 30 years, 3 decades, testosterone levels have dropped 17% in the United States. Not so in other countries, but here. So also fertility has dropped. Sperm counts are down. Trend, I think it's disturbing, but there's a lot of theories. There's no real good evidence. Look at the pesticides, chemicals in our foods, hormones in our food, the plastics and the chemicals, where you can't get away from it. We go to Costco, we don't buy glass water bottles. You have a hard time lifting it. But
not us.
It's hard to get away from that. What's that?
I said not us. We'd be good.
Yeah, well, you guys have better knees.
Okay.
I think it's really hard to look at that. To me, I think common sense would say, it was higher. Our Quest, I was talking to somebody with Quest, and they told me that the bottom end of the range used to be 350 for them, and the high end was 1,500. And it got lowered partly because Blue Cross Blue Shield negotiated that. Yeah, this is what this guy said. So if you're in network with an insurance carrier, you've got all your fees are negotiated. We'll pay you this much for CBC. We'll pay you this much for CMP, whatever. So we'll pay you a little more for some of these lab tests if you'll drop this testosterone level. Because now what happens? Well, that guy at 300 is not below 350. He's above 250, and he's okay. I don't know.
Then they don't have to cover him.
That's right.
Yeah.
So they save money. We save money here because we don't have to pay for treatments. We'll go ahead and pay out a little extra money here on your CBC. We'll give you an extra 2 cents. I don't know.
That's one of the biggest questions I think I get when, someone did get existing blood work, and because, I call all the patient leads and talk to them, and they're saying, why is the range so wide? It's so, because you feel a lot different at 200 than versus, I think somewhere you say it's 200 to 1200 is normal. There's a big fucking difference in that. And so, like the scam, if you will, what he just kind of went through is part of it. And there's even more to it, than that. So it's concerning, and I think it's only going to continue to get worse in that sense, in my opinion.
Again, that's going back to symptoms and how you feel. Are you happy with your life versus a number? I had a 26-year-old guy come in. Actually, he didn't show up for his first appointment, which really aggravates me because we block out a lot of time, which I could have been. So this guy just didn't show up. Okay. About a week and a half later, a woman calls and reschedules him with, and he will be there. So we're laughing at the office. Okay, we know this story. So the guy shows up. I'm figuring we got a 45-year-old guy. His marriage is on the rocks and so on and so forth. So I happened to walk by where I could see out to the waiting room, and this guy's in his 20s. He's a young guy. And the woman was with him, and she was wearing a yellow cocktail dress, which was just not necessary, and Creve Coeur, Missouri at 2:00 on a Monday afternoon. So, they come in, and they're sitting across the table from me, and she's looking at me, with the look, and I'm looking at her, and I'm going, I know, it's not you. I know, it's not you. I can see it's not you. So here's the guy. So, all right, man, what's going on? And again, I already know. This guy worked out. He's a meathead guy. He had muscle, a little doughy, but okay. Well, I've always worked out. But over the last year, even longer, my lifts are down. I'm tired all the time. I gained 15, maybe even 20 pounds. It's all fat. And she's just staring a hole through him. And then he says, and I have no sex drive. And then she turns her head, looks at me. I'm looking at her. I'm thinking, all right, Wittmer, shut up. You're a professional here, right? Because again, I told you, I said to almost everybody, you're not sick. You're just not happy with the way you're feeling. And so I'm looking at him, I'm looking at her, looking back and forth, I'm thinking, geez, this girl's here with you and you don't want to, because guess what? If she could have a date before she hit our parking lot, but she's sitting here with you. So I look at him, I said, I tell almost everybody that comes in here, they're not sick. I look back at her, I look back at him, I look back, I think you might be sick. Here was his story. And this, to our point, he'd been to his GP. You want to guess what his testosterone level was?
120.
It was 255.
Oh, man.
Close.
Come on.
His GP told him that he was fine, that he was within the range. He was low normal, but he was fine. Now, I'm sorry, you got a heterosexual 26-year-old guy that lifts weight. Were your lifts going down when you were in your mid-20s? No, prime time. And he's got a girlfriend that looks like this and he doesn't want to have sex with. He's normal. I don't care what the numbers say. Yeah, no way. But that's what they get, because unless you're outside of those parameters, that's normal. I've been told they take 95% of the men and they put the top 2.5 above and the top two or bottom 2.5 below. Everything else is normal. I don't know if that's true or not. But again, I don't care about the number. Certainly not to the point that I care about their symptoms. And that's what's going to direct us. I'm looking at this guy. Yeah, you're not normal. You're fat. You're tired. You're losing strength. And you want to have any sex with a pretty hot girlfriend? Actually, extremely hot. But
you're just stressing this.
Yeah.
So, this is called hormone replacement therapy. What about some people that come to your office that don't really need the hormones to be replaced? They just want to be enhanced.
We don't do hormone replacement. We do optimization.
There you go.
Yeah.
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 So,
I think the industry is you hear TRT, and it's, if you put like TOT, like doesn't resonate with people. So you have to do like HRT or TRT, even though, obviously we're optimizing what you have, So
we legally prescribe roids. It's what you're trying to communicate to people.
Yes, testosterone is an anabolic steroid. And I think testosterone gets a bad rap because of the synthetic anabolic steroids which because they're synthetic, they have health issues. It'll screw with your lipids. I see guys their HDLs drop, their cholesterol goes up. Whatever you're doing on the side, man, you need to stop because it's screwing with your lipids. So yes, there are health risks to synthetic anabolic steroids. Well, testosterone is an anabolic steroid. So mainstream medicine has lumped testosterone in with Anavar, you guys, Dianabol, Maxabol, Winstrol, Nandrolone. So it's all bad.
So it sounds like Transformers.
And again, testosterone is a natural hormone that we make. So it's not the same. It's healthy. It's healthy to have better estrogen levels. I already did the visceral fat thing. And
what have you guys seen? What have you seen when somebody comes to you and they used to bodybuild, they used to power lift, and they did take some of these other drugs, something like Trenbolone or some of these other things? You hear so many people talking about Tren all the time. What are because you're saying there is negative implications to those things. What are some of the negative implications that you've seen?
Dyslipidemia, their own system may not recover well. Their FSH and LH, the pituitary hormones that stimulate the testicles, are depressed. And now they're stuck with low testosterone because the extended use. We used to cycle on and off. We somehow innately knew that we shouldn't do this without stopping at some point. But also, we didn't have enough money to go on year round. And I think if we had the money, we might have gone on year round. But once I got towards the end of a cycle for a competition, I could tell I wasn't feeling good. I just kind of felt like I'm kind of looking forward to stopping. Of course, after 6 weeks, when you lose 15 pounds and your lifts start going down, you hurt all over, you're ready to go back. But I think guys that I've seen that started using anabolic steroids in their teens, I think that's really a bad idea. Yeah, I know Jeff and I, when I used to travel overseas with him when he was lifting at the World Championships and, the junior worlds where you've got a guy in his weight class snatched 407, Russian, Akayev. And, oh my God, well, what's he doing? Well, he's 19 years old. I think when you start at such a young age,
they caught him eventually. I said they caught him eventually.
Yeah, he did get caught, yeah.
When you have the juniors out lifting the seniors out, the senior world records, I think sometimes it's suspect, especially if, amongst how they look in appearance too. So
I think when you're young, you don't let your natural endocrine system get established. So it's suppressed at a very young age versus a guy in his 20s who's had several years of building up their own natural levels. Okay, it's a little different. I also have a lot of guys, bodybuilders. Actually, every one of them is a bodybuilder. These guys are in their 50s. They never stopped. They competed. They did their cycles, took anabolic steroids. And then when they were finished competing, they got to that age where I'm not competing anymore. They just went down to a TRT program. And they've been on TRT for 20 years or more even. These guys, God, I wish I'd have done that, I think. Once I was done competing, I'm done. I'm not doing this. I think I wish I had gone right to TRT. These guys look extremely good for any age. You don't want to go, man, you look really good for a guy in his 50s. You look really good for a guy that's 23, jacked. And they're not. They're just using a regular testosterone dose, but they maintain that level of fitness. And guess what? They're healthy. But now they're quite a few years down the road, and who knows what they did earlier on, but they didn't screw themselves up, whereas some do.
And I think now there's a lot more information out there from like the bodybuilders that I talk to when they're getting ready to retire. And there's, like you had mentioned, they just abruptly stop, where I think now there's the awareness from a lot of the information out there to say, hey, it's okay to stay at this low, you're better off staying at this low coasting dose moving forward than completely shutting it down. So like, I think that's becoming more and more common, what you mentioned.
Real quick, I love where the conversation is going because I do want to talk more about the longevity. But you said you would prefer a teenager wait until they're in their 20s. I'm curious why why in their 20s? I feel like that still seems like it's a bit young to even, kind of dive into something like this.
Well, you're 22, you're 23. I don't remember how old I was when I started. I think I was 22. And I'm competing and I'm getting better. And I'm a decent athlete. And the only guys beating me were on. I wanted to play in their sandbox. And these were the rules. I didn't have to play in their sandbox, but I didn't want to keep getting fifth place. I wanted to win. I wanted to get to the next level. So that's where I went to. If you want to talk from just an overall general health standpoint, I would say, you should wait longer. You got to, we have very few guys in their 20s. And these guys now these guys are sick. They have endocrine problems, pituitary problems, and they're sick. They need to do this just for their health versus a normal, let's say 26-year-old who just wants to jack it up a little bit. But I would tell that guy, wait. But I'm not sure if I'm answering your question. Is that where you're going with this?
Yeah, and I think just to add to that too, I mean, like the guys that we see in their 20s that come to us whether there was previous abuse, where they say they're in their mid to upper 20s where they're trying to address that, or we may have someone where it's a, former military member that suffered a TBI or close to IED, or there's a, like my dad mentioned, pituitary issue, pituitary tumor, things like that. I would say those are the outlier cases, but we are seeing it's more common. Like I said, I started at 32. When I thought I'd start to older, but I was really low. I would say it's rare. I mean, there's those circumstances where maybe someone is in their mid to late 20s because of some sort of trauma, or even a car accident because the pituitary is so sensitive. I would say in those scenarios, we do see it. And we've had, obviously amazing results too from those people because they're, obviously like we had kind of mentioned earlier with the low levels, and you combine that with, something traumatic or abuse, they're, mentally they're not in a good spot either. So you can help get them back on track.
So, I mean, just adding context to it, right? That's really what I was hoping for, not to just say like, oh, as soon as you hit your 20s, like, you should probably hop on. It's just certain case scenarios, right?
Yeah, I would say those are the outliers. Andrew, for sure. But so I would say most people are coming to a little bit later to us in life.
Yeah, I would add to it as well and say, somebody that's been training for a while already, somebody that maybe feels stuck. They've been at it for a while. I think one of the major things to consider, and this is something I share with people often, is what Nsima alluded to in the beginning of the show. Hey, like, do you get to take these and like they somehow carry on after you're done using them? They don't. And so somebody that's thinking about using performance enhancing drugs, or thinking about going and going to a clinic of some sort, you're only going to get the results when you're on the program. That's it. You don't get to carry those results on. And if you do get to carry any of them on, the gains that you may hold on to when you're not on performance enhancing drugs are going to be probably very little in most cases. So it's just something to think about. Like if you're going to do them, whatever age you decide to do them, if you want the same results of when you were actually utilizing them, you will have to go back to them. That's, I mean, I've never seen it work any different way than that.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, that could be said as far as, aesthetically as well as strength. And obviously I'm a weightlifter. I'll use a weightlifting analogy. When you'll see someone will hit really good numbers, then let's say they test positive, and then for, WADA gets more involved, starts testing that comes from right. And then all of a sudden, once their band's up, there's some guys where we're seeing that, they're struggling, to clean and jerk weights they are snatching, where usually there's a significant spread there, so it's fascinating, but it's kind of back to square one almost, if you will. So, just to use a strength analogy too there, I said you're absolutely right. And that's what we've seen.
I have a selfish question because, I mean, after hearing all of this for so long, it's like, I can assume that by the time I think I'm somewhere in my 40s, I'm going to want to go on some HRT. It kind of just makes sense. But my question is like, how long should one maybe wait? Like, how do you know when you're starting to really decline? Is it obvious just in the way you're feeling, low energy, et cetera? Or is there like just a good time to think about doing it? Because I want to put that off for as long as I can. Also because like I compete in drug tested sports. But with that being said, how long do you think something like that could be put off for the idea of like longevity, holding on to health, etc.?
I wouldn't put it off. There's, I saw a study about a year and a half ago that looked at life expectancy and low testosterone, and they used 440 as the number, as the marker, and they found that guys with levels lower than 440 had decreased life expectancy compared to the guys higher. Now, you know what they say about statistics: lies, damn lies, and statistics. Or if you torture numbers long enough, they'll confess to anything. So as a testosterone guy, you know, well, yeah, you want, that's good, right? Well, wait a second. That's correlation or association. That doesn't necessarily indicate a causation, that it's the low testosterone that is limiting your life expectancy. Maybe there are other health issues there that are causing the low testosterone. You know, the diabetes, insulin sensitivities, keep going on. You know the risks. Mm-hmm. So that's why you have low testosterone, because you sit on your ass all day and you eat shit, you smoke cigarettes and drink beer. So it's really hard to say. I think it's really a very personal issue. There's not a right and wrong. And I really emphasize this to patients that I don't want to come across as really pushing this, because, you know, I'm so into it. I think it's great. I know what it's done for my life and, my wife and I, and then of course other patients and friends of mine. You know, this is awesome. I don't want to come across shoving it down anybody's throat. You know, I want them to understand, if you're not happy with where you're at, then let's do something about it. If you are, that's fine. I don't think, I'm not sure you want to push it off as long as you can, because
sport and partially, like, I don't want to start taking something that I don't
you're
like
drug
need.
tested.
Like, yeah. And I also don't want to start something that at the time I don't really need until I need it. You know what I mean? I'd like to ride the wave out as long as I can.
Yeah. Yeah, you get to decide. Now, you may go, well, you're done competing. You're not going to get drug tested. Whatever reason, your squat over the last couple of years has dropped 10%, or maybe even more, or you're losing some muscle. You notice that you're not as energetic. The volume, you've got to cut the volume on your workouts now. Your call. You know, that's your call. When do you need it? Well, when my squat drops 20%, I need it. I don't know. If you're good with 20% drop, okay, then wait till it's 30. If you feel, going back to the libido, how much do you need? I always tell people, if they're in a relationship, I said, how's your partner or your spouse with this? Because this is about compatibility here. Mm-hmm. I've had stop because their wife wasn't on board with it. You know, they go on TRT, they feel great. And she's like, yeah, right. Twice a month is fine, but this every other day isn't going to work. So get off me. And you need there's a compatibility issue there where there's no right or wrong. You need to decide. My wife has talked to people and women and, roughly our age, and some, this is controversial and they know what we do. And, she's heard, well, who does it anymore anyway? Well, if their husband's okay with that, what do I care? If they're both happy, that's them.
I think there's some people too, though, they say, hey, obviously we can't help aging every day we get older. There's some people that just give into that, where instead I said, hey, there's actually something you can do about it. Where like, I look at, for me, I'm like, I feel just as good now as I did when I was 10 years ago, or even my I actually feel better because, you know, I was coming off of a lot of heavy training, my joints hurt. And so it's been beneficial in that way. But I mean, I think so in your scenario, are they testing for jujitsu?
Yeah, jujitsu.
Yeah. I mean, I think for your scenario, it's, hey, when you do know you're done competing and it's, hey, you know, see how you're feeling, get the blood work done, if, you know, see where the numbers are at there. And then you're very in tune with your body. You're very structured in your regimen. I heard quite a bit about it. So I said, you'll know you're that in tune. You'll know something's a little bit off where I'm like, I knew it was like as much as I was like, hold on, I'm having to sleep so much more. I'm like, I'm having a little trouble getting it up. It's like, it happens and you're going to know, you know, and you're, you know, educated enough to know kind of some of those symptoms. But that's what like my best recommendation is when you get, you know, out of, and that was when I knew I was getting out of drug test sport. That's when I said, hey, I do know what one, I'm curious at some point if this would be beneficial for me, but hey, not in my late 20s, but all of a sudden when I hit my early 30s, I'm like, wow, like I that's when I was feared. I'm like, how the hell am I going to feel at 60? But I think that would be my best advice for you kind of going forward.
And okay, and this makes me curious. This is partially why I'm so like wary about stuff like this, because it sounds amazing and it is amazing. It's like you could be 69 feeling like, you know, you're 40 something or 30 something, right? But I mean, where's the issue here? Because I'm just like, this just sounds too good. That's why I'm wondering, like, you know, the aging process. We are supposed to age over time. Like, test does go down. Is there anything to just like be super careful about? Because it sounds so good, and it is so good from what you hear about from so many people. But it's just like, is there something on the other side of that people just should be thinking about?
Yeah, this sounds too good to be true.
Kinda.
Yeah.
And therefore, something's wrong with this, right? Or, yeah. You know what my biggest fears is? I'd have to stop testosterone for some reason. And you brought up, I know, thinking back, you guys got me thinking back of my life, and as I started to age, and I'm, you know, I knew I was getting older. I didn't like it, but yeah, you know, what are you going to do? I'm in my 40s, and this wasn't such a thing then as it is now. It's really exploding. This was Hollywood stuff. You know, this isn't new. It was just for Hollywood. You know, why do you think all those people in California are charging so much? Because they got all those wealthy actors and actresses that are paying $30,000 a year for this because they can. Well, now this is available to everybody else. You know, you don't have to be Sylvester Stallone to look good. He's got enough money to buy all the HGH in the planet, but still, this is for everybody. And where do you want to draw the line? I think that's a very personal decision. And I don't think necessarily a right or wrong.
Yeah, and I think another point to add too is that with obviously it's therapeutic doses, but one thing that I tell people too is when you get on the regimen of one thing that people don't normally do is get regular blood work. If you're going to be a patient with us, you get, or at a lot of other clinics too, you do get regular blood work done. So we're catching other things of other, you know, because we're not only running hormone panels, we're looking at overall health. So we're catching some other things in those panels. So it actually, from a lifestyle standpoint and health standpoint, we're monitoring that because a lot of people, like, they'll come to us and they've never had blood work done before. And he's caught some a lot of underlying issues, some crazy things. And with blood count levels, someone I know with, you know, stage 0 cancer, things like that, they caught it where they didn't come in, that would have kept growing because it's a battle sometimes to get a full extensive panel with your GP to get your insurance cover it, and then to get it done regularly. So I think that's one of the things that I look at, whereas like as far as a lifestyle goes, this puts you in a rhythm of monitoring your overall health on a regular cadence and have an interaction with the doctor. So that's why I feel like that's
a good point. Yeah. Even way more so than a regular person. I think, you know, the topic gets to be a little confusing sometimes for people, but we're trying to enhance everything all the time. I mean, you know, you have trouble seeing, you're going to get glasses or contacts or maybe LASIK eye surgery. You're not just going to keep bumping into the same fucking post every day. Eventually, you're going to want to do something about not being able to see. Eventually, you'd like to do something about not being able to hear. You want to try to figure out ways of making your life better, enhancing your life. And it's very normal for somebody to have an experience. Let's say you go out on a boat with some friends and you have a good time on a weekend. It's very normal to go out and enjoy yourself, have a great time. And the next time you figure out, I'd like to enhance that a little bit more. So next time, rather than being a stiff and not drinking with everybody else, I'm going to fucking drink, and you make these decisions. And like, has anyone ever had bad experiences with drinking? Well, of course they have. And drinking can be really harmful in many, many different ways, but drinking can be spectacular as well. I mean, the drinking it can be a lot of fun. Can you drink fairly often and have a great time and cause no harm to your body? I think you can, but it's got to be like in a reasonable fashion. And what you guys are pointing out is even safer because you're being walked through it by people that have experience. I'm not trying to like sell people on and say, hey, like go fucking do this stuff. But at the same time, it's enhanced so much for me. I've seen what it has done for other people. The major drawback is that we love this shit. We love to lift. And for people that are listening, for people that are on the bubble, that are like, I don't know, I would recommend to go Nsima's route and to push it off unless they have symptoms. If you don't have any symptoms, I don't think there's anything to really worry about. But if you have symptoms, you don't feel good, you feel miserable, you feel depressed about what's going on, then I would really look into the blood work. Then I would consider some of these things. But you have to understand, if you are already an iron addict, as our buddy CT Fletcher talks about, this is going to be something that you will do the rest of your life, and you'll be trapped in it. And the pull towards taking more and getting a little more out of it, just like I talked about with the drinking, it's going to be sitting right there for you. It's going to be sitting right there for you in a box somewhere in your house, in a syringe. And it's going to be sitting right there for you, talking to you, saying, hey, you should take a little bit, like you're doing great. Fucking things are looking good. You look pretty jacked, but why don't we take this just a little step further and see what happens? And I'm not saying I even know what the detrimental things are to that. It's just that it's a long road. You'll be on them for a long time. There probably is some reason to consider what your life's going to look like when you're 70, when you're 80. And so that's the main thing that I usually try to communicate with people. Like, just understand, this is not as simple as you going to the store and picking up some vitamin C. It's much different than that. So, just like the doctor pointed out, go do your research, go read up on it, talk to other people, communicate to other people, and listen to shows like this, so you do have the information, so you can make the right choices moving forward.
Yeah. Have you guys seen, or are there such things as like diminishing returns on taking testosterone? And if there are, what are some of the things you can do to help aid it?
We haven't pushed anybody that high. There's certainly diminishing returns. We used to talk about this all the time. I'm sure, Mark, you know what I'm talking about as well. I went on 30 milligrams of Dianabol and my lifts went up 10 kilos. Okay, so let's do 40 milligrams and 50 milligrams. And, at what point do you not get any gains out of it? So that it's no more returns. And then at what point do you cross the line where you now are sick? You are not feeling good.
I've done that. About as far as you can take it.
But before the Olympic trials in 1980, I stayed on longer than I ever did. It was 18 weeks. And usually I would do 6 to 10. So these guys talked me into staying on. I was going to go off and then go back. And these guys I was training with, we're really going to go hard. We're all training together. You can't do this if you don't stay on. Some of my buddies were on 9 months at a time, which was just unheard of back then. So about 2 to 3 weeks before, I actually had morning sickness. And of course, my estrogen must have been so high. And I'm not saying estrogen is bad, but mine must have been sky high. Yeah, I would get up in the morning and I couldn't throw up because there was nothing in my stomach, but I've got the dry heaves. and I couldn't eat any food, I would choke down a protein shake, drink another one later in the day, maybe get a little food. And then when dinner would come around, I'd eat half my dinner. I weighed in a full 10 pounds under my normal body weight at the Olympic trials. You know, like, what the hell? I got my opening lifts, and that was it. And I think I missed both my openers. I had to repeat them on my second. I was lucky to do that. There's not diminishing returns, but negative returns. I did too much for too long. So at the point, I'd have to look. I can't even remember everything I was doing back then, but for me, it was a lot.
I'd also say the lifestyle is a huge part of that. You know, some people that might be listening that are into strength, that are powerlifting. I mean, powerlifters, strongman athletes, they're really at high risk because they're not eating well. And it may not necessarily be the various steroids that somebody's on, although they can contribute to a lot of different things. It's just the poor eating habits and the weight gain. I mean, your blood pressure is going to go, you know, if you normally are, 6 feet tall and you're normally 205 pounds and you're now 300 pounds, I mean, that's going to be stressful, and that would be stressful no matter how you did it, no matter how you decided to gain that much weight. Your body's not used to lugging that kind of weight around. So definitely I know a lot of people that are considering, going on some stuff, and we're mainly talking about reasonable dosages under the care of a physician, which is just in a completely different category than if you're trying to utilize steroids for bodybuilding, if you're trying to utilize steroids for powerlifting. Those are things that, because the amount that you may take, they could have more risk. And because you're not really looking under the hood to see what's going on, they could exponentially have even worse implications to them. So it's something that, I don't think people should take lightly, and they should pay attention to. Like, if you don't have your shit together in terms of a nutrition plan and you think that you're going to hop on steroids and get in shape, I think that's the worst mentality that she can have. You should already have some of these disciplines intact. You should already be hitting the gym. You should already be eating properly. You should already understand some of these things. And then if you really feel like you're stuck and you're not happy with some of the things going on, then maybe you should look into it.
Yeah. And I guess,
Mark, that used to piss us off at day when people would look at what you're doing. They look at you, well, you're on steroids. Say, you know what? I took a bottle of Dianabol and I rolled it under the bar. The bar didn't move. Then I took a bottle of testosterone and I rolled it under the bar. It still didn't move.
Right.
So guess what? I'm doing the damn work and everything else that comes with it. We've got a few guys, though, and I think Jeff might know at least a couple of them. These are 320 guys. They're obese. Their idea of exercise is playing the guitar. And, one of them, in particular, I'm thinking about, he essentially sat on a needle once a week, and he lost 65 pounds in 6 months. And still drinking his beer, zero exercise. I always tell you, there's a big picture here. You get more out of it if you put this into it. I told him, I said, don't tell any of your fat friends. I don't want them all coming here thinking they're going to get the same result. Good for you. Because he's like, this is the best thing I ever did in my life.
That's great. Was he able to figure out a way to eat less somehow or something through some of this process?
He told me he's a beer connoisseur. Knows all the ins and outs of making beer, and I'm not a beer drinker, so I don't know mostly what he's talking about. I don't know the difference in the various types, but it's kind of a hobby of his. And okay, I was so wanting to help this guy. I set him up with a home gym. I took him to a place, told him what to buy, got him a squat rack, got him a barbell, got him some mats and a bench and some dumbbells. And I had him over at our house showing him how this is a 40-something-year-old guy squatting an empty bar, and which was about the limit.
Did he end up exercising or eating any better at all, or he just mainly took testosterone?
He was very happy because he got his squats up to 105 for 5.
There we go. Nice
progress.
Well, you know what? We all start somewhere.
That's right.
And I'm not okay. But then what? He quit. He just got out of it. Stopped. He didn't like it. It's uncomfortable, I guess. Okay.
Yeah, and I think with him, he's in that situation too, where he lost all that initial weight because his hormones were all out of whack, and then he was like, he goes, hold on, I got a little lazier, I drank a little more beer, and like weight's going down. This is great. And it's just, as far as physical movement and just being, I know who you're talking about, so I know he's more sedentary lifestyle. But yeah, I think where he's like, hey, I'm going to keep going this because I don't want to gain that 50 to 60 pounds back because this helps so much. But we do get people like that where they say, hey, I can not work out as much or not eat as good. I feel a little bit better, but to get the maximal benefits, this is how I kind of explain it to people too, where think about, it's not going to happen suddenly too. If you take the testosterone, maybe after a few weeks, you get a little extra energy, then a little extra libido, then a little strength comes in, and then later down the road, some fat loss and some body composition truly changes where it's a process. But I said, if you look at it where, instead of doing the super physiological doses, but I said, think if you're in that 1,000 to 1,500 nanograms per deciliter range and you were down at like 300, I said, well, think about if you train regularly at those optimal levels of what that's going to do for muscle development over the course of time. And that's how I try to explain to people. I said, it is not like you're going to go to the gym and all of a sudden going to have veins look like this in 3. That's where, they're going to think they're going to magically in 3 weeks look like this. I said, it's not going to happen. It's going to have to take some time. So I think, setting those expectations is important.
What about how you've seen it potentially work for obesity? Like, have you guys seen, a protocol of getting somebody on a specific program and optimizing their hormones? Have you seen it help people quite a bit when you have someone that comes to you that's 300 pounds, 400 pounds?
Yes. It's really, of course not. There's different results for different people, but you increase your testosterone, you increase your estrogen, which improves insulin sensitivity. So you've got guys that are pre-diabetic that don't need metformin anymore, and they lose that visceral fat. Their cholesterol levels drop. Estrogen's very cardioprotective. And I've had a few guys, actually a cardiologist that referred a patient because one of our patients was going to him, and this guy was on blood pressure medicine. He's early diabetes, so he's just on metformin, not on insulin. And he lost a bunch of weight. All he was doing was by our standards, very mild, light weight training workouts, 3 times a week for 40 minutes kind of stuff. And probably not squats, but the leg press machine or leg curls or something like that. But it really, from a health standpoint, was incredible for him. And God, I wish when I see these guys walking around, I'm like, God dang it, you need to get on some tests, man. Go to the gym. When you think of a 45-year-old dropping dead, is it a guy or a girl?
A guy.
Almost always. Women don't have heart disease like we do until they get in their late 50s, early 60s, and they start catching up to us. Well, so what's going on with a 60-year-old woman? Menopause. She lost her estrogen 10 years ago. So now she's got the, what do they call it? Muffin top. The body changes. They don't have the figure. It's all this. And maybe they start heading towards diabetes. Their posture changes. Their skin looks dry. They're aging. They lost their hormones, and here they are now with heart disease. When we start taking testosterone and increase estrogen, it helps with these other parameters, and it's very healthy. Now, again, some people, they don't handle it as well as others. Most of them do just fine. But I think that's a benefit, going back to what you were saying, Nsima, about starting it younger. Some of these guys, you bump up their estrogen. I think that helps a lot. It's good for their bones. It's good for their joints. The bodybuilders, guys we see, and these aren't, I say bodybuilders, they don't compete, but that's the mindset. They used to compete maybe. They want to look shredded. They want to be ripped. Water retention and estrogens are mortal enemies. So these guys all want to use an aromatase inhibitor to keep their estrogen down. We talk about the pros and cons. It's their decision. That's one part of evidence-based medicine is the patient gets to participate in this process. But,
I know pre-comp, they like to start it to dry out a little bit more, but I know a lot of them don't want to go year round.
Oh, we got guys, Jeff, that's where they live.
Okay.
Really do. I'm not happy about it, but we do what we can to help them, and we talk about it. They're educated. That's their choice.
What about thyroid medication and growth hormone and things of that nature? Do you bring those things in occasionally?
Thyroid, yes. Growth hormone peptides we use. Probably the biggest, most common, Sermorelin. But thyroid, we use a T3, T4 combination made in a pharmacy. So it's a custom made, bioidentical. See a lot of patients that are taking Synthroid and or just a plain levothyroxine, or is a synthetic T4, and they don't convert well to T3. But I don't know how much you guys want to get into this.
Well, I'm just kind of asking more so for like maybe some people that want to have like a body transformation, that are thinking about, considering getting into this, and maybe even the impacts and what you do for women, what that looks like. So
yeah, maybe our patient base is I would say we're like 40% women, 60% men. I know we talked a lot about testosterone so far, but we treat a lot of women, and then we do have people come to us specifically just for thyroid deficiencies as well, specifically. So as far as you can let him get in the women, the kind of the female protocols that we look at, along with the kind of add to the thyroid stuff.
Well, we just like with testosterone, we optimize the thyroid. So their levels might be within the range, but they're tired all the time. They get a good 8 or 9 hours sleep, and they wake up, they still want to sleep 2 or 3 more hours. They want to take naps every day. Maybe their hair is thinning, their eyebrows are thinning, their skin's dry, their nails are brittle, hypersensitivity to cold, and they just can't lose that weight. Whatever diet they do, starve themselves, they still don't lose weight. We look at their thyroid and we optimize their thyroid, and maybe even then some. Back in the days before lab tests were available, how they treated low thyroid? I'm going to give you a little bit. Tell me how you're doing in a month. I don't shit. Okay, we're going to give you a little bit more. Tell me in another month. I still don't feel anything. We'll give you a little more. Well, at some point you're going to, hey, I feel good. There's your dose. And, one of my best stories, this is a 38-year-old woman. She had the gastric sleeve surgery. She was bumping up against 400 pounds, and she's 190 when she comes in. You guys would love her. Mixed martial arts fighter. Yeah, that's her passion. Poor sleep, zero libido, tired all the time. So we gave her progesterone, testosterone, and thyroid. We checked labs in 6 weeks. And she didn't get her labs done. She ran out of her prescription. She calls for a refill. And she says, I'll go get my labs. Well, not now. You haven't been taking it. So we'll get you the refill, take it. Long story short, it was 7 months before she finally got her labs done. She kind of fell through the cracks. Our practice has expanded quite a bit. We've hired more people now. But I get her labs back. The range for T3, free T3, is 2.3 to 4.2. She was 9.3. One of the signs of hyperthyroidism is heart palpitations. I started having heart palpitations when I saw that. And I thought, oh my God, I'm killing her. And normally I would have just called her. I went to the office and saw she had an appointment for later in the week. And I thought, you know what? I'll just see what she says. If she was having problems, she would have called. She came in, she was 150 pounds. She said she did a fight in the 145-pound weight class. Never had this easy a time making weight. She never kept it off. She said, I have not felt this good in my entire life. And I'm sitting here, I'm fully expecting to drop her dose. And she was on an average dose. We start people and we have to increase them to get them to 4 or 5. She takes this dose and she comes back 9.3. How the hell does that happen? I don't know. So here, I pull her labs up. I said, well, you're really high with the free T3. It's way over. It's 9.3. And she almost got off the chair and got on one knee and begged me, please don't change a thing. I've never felt this good. So I ran through the symptoms of high thyroid, and none of them. I'm looking at this going, okay, well, that was 3 years ago. She's still doing awesome. Wow. So it goes back to optimizing based on patient response. Neil Rousier was explaining this once, a patient of his in a real high dose. And somebody raised their hand and said, what were the free T3, T4 levels? He says, I'm not going to tell you. 1,500 hours a weekend for this conference here, man. What do you mean? There's 100 doctors and we're looking around. No, you have to tell us. He said, it would scare you. And then he finally did, but he made his point, which is I hadn't had this patient at the time. So I didn't necessarily relate to this. And it did scare me, when I saw it. But then I went back and said, okay, so we just left it and it's been great for her ever since. So thyroid's a big thing. Sometimes TRT doesn't work until you optimize the thyroid. A lot of low testosterone, low thyroid symptoms cross over. And low just means symptoms. It doesn't mean numbers necessarily.
What about the difference between men and women in terms of testosterone and estrogen? I mean, we both have both, right? So right. What's a standard level for a woman versus standard levels for a male?
You talking about the ranges?
I guess like normal ranges.
Well, Quest, let's go to free testosterone because that's what's bioavailable and actually working. And that number is more important than total testosterone. Okay. So for Quest, the range is 35 to 155 for men. And for women, it's 0.1 to 6.4, which is almost criminal because a woman could have 0.2 and she's fine. And a woman with 6.2 is also fine. So those are the levels. And is that what you're looking for, a comparison?
Yeah, and then what about estrogen?
For estrogen, well, women, it fluctuates throughout the month. They'll go over 100, they'll drop down into the 20s, or even well over 100. For us, there's different methods of testing estradiol. The one we use for Quest is below 39, is considered normal. Women need testosterone just like we need estrogen. And a lot of the women, most of the women we see wind up getting testosterone. They're tired. They want muscle. They're workout chicks. They want to look good and be leaner, more muscular, and their libido isn't good. They don't like that. So testosterone's right up their alley. So they love it.
Are there more wrinkles of complexity when it comes to diet, like giving them doses of HRT? Are there other things that they need to be looking into? And then, how about women post-menopause? Is there a difference?
In how we treat them?
And how you treat them.
Well, postmenopausal women are likely going to get estrogen. We're looking at hot flashes, their body changes. So they're going to get estrogen. If they're taking estrogen, they must take progesterone. Then maybe testosterone, maybe thyroid, DHEA. Some of the women, these aren't postmenopausal women. I was going to say we've got some women that like the peptides. These are younger, 40. They're all into that youthful thing, so they kind of max that out. But there's more moving parts with women when you start throwing in estrogen and progesterone. So they can be more difficult. They generally are more difficult to work with.
That's why primarily you see, there's a lot of men's low T clinics all over, and you see a lot of places will only treat men, or there'll be a place that only treats women, and they tie in the med spa services. And because you make less money on women in the HRT industry, and then also two, they're harder to treat. So that's why you'll see a lot of these places. You'll see low T, where they may be popping up every corner in some cities, but there's places that do both men and women. But I would say you see a lot of only that will just focus on just the men.
Mm-hmm. Would prescribing testosterone to a woman, would that mess with their birth control? I know it's a really weird question, but
you get that all the time.
No, it's a good question because with synthetic oral contraceptives, sex hormone binding globulin is increased. And for women, the range will be up to 84 for a younger woman. I've seen them come in there like 250. So they've got real high sex hormone binding globulin, which means a greater percentage of their testosterone is going to be tied up by that carrier protein. When that happens, it's done. It's out of the game until it gets excreted. So they may have a decent testosterone level, but their free testosterone's in the toilet. Then their sex drive is there too. So with that, that's why we want to look at sex hormone binding globulin, because I know right away her testosterone level is okay, but her free testosterone isn't, and we know why. So we're going to have to bump that total testosterone out of the range and get her free testosterone up to range or even a little higher. But it's going to be a disproportionate balance there because of that. I always try to talk her into getting off of it.
In the amounts that they would take, does it change their voice and things of that nature, or no?
No, but side effects with the women, guys get oily skin, maybe some get a little acne. That subsides as they get used to the new hormone levels. Women might get the hirsutism or facial hair. Your dark-haired Italian woman with that thick, coarse chin hairs, they get those. The blonder, it's more of a fuzz. Most of them don't have a problem with that, and if they do, we can drop the dose down a little bit. But yeah, by then the ship has sailed, and they don't want to cut their dose. They're like, I'm just plucking them.
Right.
They said I've got one. She's in her 40s. She says, I'm like a teenager again. My skin's oily. It's breaking out. And I said, well, we drop your dose. She says, no, my boyfriend loves this. The choice. You can deal with it however you want, but rarely do we drop testosterone. Because once they hit that, they feel so good. They don't want to go down. They'll deal with, plucking a few hairs off their chin. I've had a couple of women stop because they didn't like that. It's not for everybody. It's okay.
Do either male or females become desensitized to, once they find that optimal dosage? Does that occur over time, or is it more they get older and then their natural production changes or something like that?
So if they're on, let's just say guys, if a guy's on testosterone, there is no natural production.
Right.
The hypothalamus and the brain will see that you have plenty of testosterone, and it's just going to cut it down. There'll be no gonadotropal releasing hormone stimulating the pituitary, so there's no FSH or LH, and your testicles aren't producing sperm or testosterone. Now that they're not sterile, it's not birth control. It just takes one, but their sperm count will be suppressed. So that's long gone when they started testosterone. So to answer your question, no. This isn't like a chemical like alcohol or OxyContin, whatever, a codeine, Vicodin type, where you build up a sensitivity to the chemical where you need to take more and more to get the effect. It's just not that case with this.
And for those that are looking to get pregnant, men and women, are there any considerations that they need to take into account before taking any of this stuff? Does it have any effect?
Yes. I talk to the younger guys, are you interested in having children? And we talk about the decreased fertility and what happens to the axis. We use HCG when they're ready to conceive, which mimics FSH and LH and stimulates the testicles to make sperm and testosterone. We haven't because nobody's needed to. You can get injectable FSH itself and use that. It's more expensive, but we just haven't needed it. Everybody has been able to successfully conceive. Sometimes Clomid, we've used that as well. So yeah, we'll alter their protocol when they get to the point where they want to start having a family. I think some of these guys, they were unable to conceive because their testosterone was so low. Their sex drive was in the toilet, and they probably weren't making much sperm. So they needed the HCG to get things fired up down there. For women, they I would pull them off testosterone if they're trying to get pregnant. I'm not sure at what level you start masculinizing the fetus. So let's just, it's not the end of the world. You can stop for a few months. High testosterone levels or testosterone supplements can have an effect on the baby.
And how about like site in like the actual location of injections? Does that matter? I know there's like sub-Q and then I forgot whatever the muscle. Sorry, that's yeah.
I am. Yeah. We tell the guys they could use their lateral thigh, vastus lateralis, or their glute. I don't have anybody that does delts, but that's fine. We use between a 1/2 inch and inch needles. So it's either a shallow IM or obviously intramuscular with a inch. There are some that advocate the sub-Q. I think that's probably fine with the lower doses. You can use a smaller, thinner needle. Those are the guys that are injecting, I say micro dosing every day, maybe. Your labs will bear that out. If it's not getting absorbed because it's getting injected into the fat, your labs will show that. But it just doesn't. I've seen studies where the sub-Q was doing just fine. It's in your body. Eventually, it's going to get into the bloodstream and it's going to do its thing. So there's been some argument over the years, some very well-known, I think John Chrysler was one of the early advocates of the sub-Q protocol. And people are arguing back and forth. Hey, if you're injecting sub-Q and you feel great, then keep doing it. If you're not, well, maybe that's another thing we ought to think about modifying and try another route. But I don't have anybody that does the abdomen. We do have guys that use the 1/2 inch needle with anywhere from like a 0.3 to 0.5 milliliter dose and do just fine with that.
I was curious because earlier in the conversation you mentioned testosterone being a controlled substance, and I don't know if you were mentioning how that's problematic or...
I politically, now, I don't think it's, right? I give it as right, wrong, and legal, I guess. I think there was a kid in Texas, a high school kid who was taking steroids, wound up committing suicide, and his boss got in on this cause and lobbied the politicians to start regulating anabolic steroids. And John McCain was actually heavily involved in this. And the Congress, I can't remember what year it was. I want to say, it had to be the second George Bush was president, but they passed a law and it got signed that testosterone is a controlled substance. So now it's a felony.
We can thank our current president for that as well.
Was he voting on that too?
Yeah, he was involved. Yeah,
I'm stunned. I find that very difficult. He needs to be on now,
right?
Or he might fall over again.
But yeah, I don't think it should be a controlled substance. I think these things probably should be prescription though, because of some of the intricacies involved. Do you guys remember when Donald Trump was elected? They actually announced his testosterone at 492.
Oh, wow.
And, I'm thinking, whoa, I would have bet $500 Trump was on TRT. 492. He must have gone off before the test or something. And the other side of me is thinking, it's none of my business what that is. They didn't tell us Bill Clinton's testosterone levels.
Yeah, she was probably high.
I don't know. So why are they telling? But I'm sure he had to okay the announcement, right? So they tell you his height, his weight, his blood pressure. He's the president. That's none of my business. I guess you want to know that they're healthy. They're not going to die tomorrow. If the president was in a coma, I'd be concerned.
Well, I think the media was coming out with some things that he was unhealthy, so he was trying to combat that, and they did the full physical and release it. So shocker. But yeah, they were trying to say he was, unfit health wise. So I think that's why he pushed out some facts.
You know what I think? I think there's guys like me that figured he was on testosterone, and the liberals are all scared that he's on testosterone. He's going to start a war because he's aggressive. And so they went ahead and put that number out there, which I'm still not sure I believe. I'm never had to be.
You know, it is.
I worked, and this is a robust man. I suppose he's overweight, but he's not grotesquely overweight. Yeah, I should shut up.
I figured he would have been doing like 150 a week at least, injecting.
Right.
Yeah. You know what? I would have hoped so. I want the president maximized, but not this one.
With testosterone being a Schedule II drug, it is important for people to understand that it is illegal, so people just need to recognize that. And, that brings up a whole nother side of things, that you either got to get them in some shady way, or you got to go visit guys like you guys.
Yeah. Or
it is illegal. It's a controlled substance.
Or it's people mixing they'll order the powder on the dark web, mix it in their garage and suspend the oil themselves. And, I've heard some, as you have, I'm sure as well, heard some crazy stories where someone's thinking they're, injecting a certain amount and their levels would indicate something really high or really low. I've seen some and heard some crazy stories, and I don't know how, sterile some of these people's garages
don't really have any idea.
Yeah, it's I don't know if it's a ISO certified facility.
Well, you know what? It's not that expensive. In fact, I know some of the guys that were getting it underground, our prices were cheaper than what they were paying for it. Mm-hmm. You know what you get in there, but now if you want to take high level dosing, well, we're not doing that. So I know there's some guys that they're getting it from us, and they're also getting it from their buddies. We had a guy about 2 or 3 weeks ago come back. Are you guys sitting down? His testosterone level was over 10,000.
Damn.
It was the little carat above 10,000, because the lab couldn't even tell you how much it was, because it was over 10,000. It was so high.
Great.
I look at that, there has to be a lab there. No, he came clean. I don't know. He told me he was taking 400 milligrams on top of ours. I'm thinking he was taking more than that.
Yeah, definitely.
What I just said, hey, look, if you're going to do that, that's up to you, but don't do that and go get your blood drawn where now it's in our records, because we're not giving you testosterone. So you need to stop. We're going to do another blood test, and if the levels aren't down, we won't prescribe you anymore, because guess what? Your levels are way high. You don't need it. So, but you got to do that outside of us. I'm not naive. Just being honest. I know some do that.
So we've been talking about dosages, even some of the locations of injections, and then like this guy just seemed like he was probably pinning himself with a lot of stuff. But for some people, like, the whole thing of getting over the needles is like a whole hurdle in itself. How safe is it, for like general, I guess I'll say general population, but general population of people that are listening to this podcast. Like, have you guys seen anything where like somebody who's self-administering, testosterone, where they make a mistake and like have things gone bad? Cause like that's, I said on a previous podcast where like I've heard like, it was like almost propaganda, like, oh, if you pin yourself and you accidentally hit like a certain nerve, like you'll paralyze yourself and all kinds of weird, like scary things. Like Nsima is like cringing right now. And I know now that was like not true, but are there any things that people really need to be careful of when it comes to self-administering some of these protocols?
Well, obviously you want to use sterile technique and needle placement. Our medical assistants will train you and show you how in the office, and you can inject yourself under their supervision. We encourage everybody to do it on their own. I think a lot of these clinics just want to get you back in there so they can charge you $35 every week for an injection, to be honest with you. But maybe I shouldn't say that, but that's just my guess.
Yeah. And then for remote patients too, then we send them instructions.
Yes.
And, we can even do, FaceTime with the medicals just to walk through, just like we do the consults. And, usually it's that first time, once you do it, you're just, then after, maybe the second time, and there's a couple of certain techniques to use, then it really honestly becomes like brushing your teeth. It's pretty simple, but like I even had a little phobia from like, how am I gonna be able to do this? Like push it all the way in. And then once you get down, like, but it has not been an issue. And I did think it was going to be at first, because even in my mind, I'm like, I'm a little hesitant driving this into, hard muscle, but it becomes like second nature once you get used to doing it. And so like, I thought it'd be an issue. Very rarely someone will say like, I can't inject or whatever. So it's it's kind of few and far between. But like you said, the key is, obviously it's got to be sterile.
We had a guy get a serious infection because he was injecting in his thigh a full cc sub Q, just barely underneath the skin. We taught him how to do it. But anyhow, for the guys that don't want to do injections, and there aren't very many, we do use scrotal creams. Kind of interesting. It's a daily application or even twice daily. The advantage of it is you get a very steady level, whereas with the injection, it goes up in a couple of days. Over the course of the week, it drops. With this, you're steady throughout the week, even though naturally our levels drop and raise throughout the day. At the end of a hard work day or a stressful day, you're going to be lower than you were first thing in the morning. But some of the guys that just don't want to do the needles and they use the creams. The disadvantage is transfer. You've got to let it dry. Can't get dressed, take a shower after putting them on, and a daily application. About 70% of the creams are absorbed, and we all absorb those differently. Whereas with the injection, 100% of it is there. We may respond differently, but we know all those milligrams are there. With the creams, we're not necessarily sure how much of that gets absorbed, but it's an option. And most of the women use the creams, the transdermal. Some do injections.
I would say of our patient base, and the creams for men, a few
very,
percent
very
maybe.
low.
I mean, I think I could count on both my hands, but
that cream sounds nice.
Yeah.
I don't know. I
Put it on like deodorant.
I was gonna say
under your balls. But I'd rather inject once a week than be digging
Fuck it,
down
do
there.
both,
Work
man.
out
Let's
a
go.
lot.
yeah, keep that steady stream.
There are, I don't have any, but there are some that do that.
Yeah.
They supplement their injections with creams.
Yeah.
Wow, I like
You
it.
got something planned for later that day, you throw your cream on.
Here at ST, instead of having like the Lysol like dispensers, we should just have that TRT cream. So that when everybody walks in, they're just like, hey, just you need a little boost today.
So actually, that brings up a question. So
There's some great signs around, by the way.
So if somebody were to like wipe this cream on their butt versus their scrotum, would it have even less of an effect, or would it still have an effect
Yes.
but lesser than on the scrotum?
Yes, the skin is thinner there. It gets absorbed better. You may have heard of the gels, the androgel and testogel. Those are about 30% absorbed, and they seem to have different effects than what injections do. But those are the trademarked pharmaceutical testosterone replacement preparations designed so they don't have to go to the office a couple times a month to get an injection. You can just do this on their own. Those are rubbed all over. It's a little sachet, and there's a lot of gel. It's alcohol based. It's not absorbed that well, whereas the transdermal creams, the Versa cream, those are absorbed better. But the scrotum, because of the thin skin, is a lot better. The women, we have them, most of them use a cream, but we haven't put it like inner thigh, lower abdomen, maybe upper arm, not axillary area, but up in here. But we've had some women that didn't absorb the creams very well, and I just have them, try Labius, and they do fine there. I mean, the numbers bear it out. We just switch location, and now their levels go where they should be. Some women don't, they just don't absorb the creams, and they go to injections eventually.
So put it on your scrotum.
Yeah.
Scrotum.
No, but
Yeah, sorry, man. And you know what? They even recommend shaving it.
Ooh,
Oh,
nice.
You want to
Manscaped.
You don't have the hair getting in the way.
Will your clinic shave it for? Never mind.
That's an additional California.
Andrew, why don't you take us out of here, buddy?
I will. Thank you, everybody, for checking out today's episode. Hopefully, we answered some of your questions about testosterone. We know we've been getting a lot of questions in the comment section as well as on Instagram. So if we did do that today, please hit that like button, hit the bell if you guys haven't already, and please subscribe, of course. Please make sure to follow the podcast at Mark Bell's Power Project on Instagram, at MB Power Project on TikTok and Twitter. My Instagram and Twitter is at I am Andrew Z. Nsima, where are you at?
At Nsima Inyang on Instagram and YouTube, at Nsima Inyang on TikTok and Twitter. Dr. Wittmer and Jeff.
I'm at Jeff Wittmer on Instagram, and then the clinic is at National Rejuvenation Centers.
There you go. And I guess I can link stuff down below, but you guys just, is that the website?
Yeah, so the website's just, you can go to nrcenters.com or nationalrejuvenationcenters.com. We'll do the same place.
Dr. Wittmer, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, you're welcome. Obviously this was fun, and
yeah,
I think I'm talking to the right crowd here.
I told him it would be his crowd. So
yeah, go hit up some deadlifts and squats for us.
All of you guys can outlift me, so I that's great.
Have a great rest of your day. I'm Mark Smelly Bell. Strength is never weakness, weakness never strength. Catch you all later.